C10, no, OBS Talk, episode 147. Mark, oh yeah. He puts the oh yeah in OBS.
The kind of little running joke we had was if I needed it tomorrow, I'd call you tomorrow.
Damn, son. Vintage Air. Their SureFit kits are the best value and the most completely engineered AC systems you can install in your truck. The choice is obvious. VintageAir.com. If you're looking for aftermarket parts for your OBS truck, Pro Performance is your go-to source. They carry the top brands for wheels, brakes, suspension, and accessories. Check them out on the web at azproperformance.com. That's azproperformance.com. When you need weather stripping for your C10, don't settle for just any brand. Seal your build right and make sure you request the best. Ask for precision replacement parts from your C10 parts supplier. Demand quality, demand precision. When you're looking for classic Chevy or GMC truck parts, BrothersTrucks.com is your number one source for 1947 to 87 Chevy and GMC restoration parts. Head on over to BrothersTrucks.com and order your free catalog today. Listen up. Here we go. OBS Talk. I tell you what, seems like you guys are digging the idea, digging the concept, and started OBS_talk on social media on Instagram. Guys are jumping on. Definitely let me know that they're looking forward to getting some love. So, I think it's kind of cool. And you've been doing something for almost 5 years. You kind of have an idea of what's going on, and not necessarily blazing a path or figuring out which direction to go, because we've been kind of doing this with C10 Talk. That's actually what's kind of cool about the OBS trucks, because kind of a revival, and this revival, they're coming back. Something that was already there, something that was already rad, something that was part of our lives is it's coming. So get on board if you dig those 88 to 98s. Again, something that we've already done, made the shirts, made the hats, the banners, the keychains. Well, they're coming out. OBS Talk, here we go. So we've got some 88 to 98 Chevy GMC keychains. We've got some OBS Talk hats. I got a new shirt that's out. You can check it out on either obstalk.com. C10 Nation is pretty much the main platform, but Obsessed. Check that shirt out. If you haven't got on Instagram, you're going to dig it. It's cool. It's a cool design. Came up with it, kind of worked with the different lettering, and obviously the SS is in there, the OBS is in there. Take a look, see what you think, and let me know. You want a banner? We got those as well. So thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for checking it out. I assume we're going to have some C10 guys, especially for this episode, because Mark is a C10 guy as well, just as I'm sure most of you are. There's a lot of C10 lineage that's going to cross over, and hopefully a little bit of both. Hopefully you got a C10 and you've got an OBS. If you're lucky, I've got a few C10s and one OBS. So right now, my main man, PR Dub's driving that. Hopefully his truck is done soon by the Get Down. That's our hope. And then I can start working on my 88 GMC. But check out the site, C10 Nation or obstalk.com, and take a look. Hats, banners. We are going on a little show circuit here, so those will be with us. That's kind of what we're thinking is, let's see here. So C10 Intervention, and then the Get Down, they are allowing the OBS trucks in. C10's in the park, not so much, but definitely have some fans out there that probably have a little bit of both. So check that out. Let's hit some reviews real quick. Square Body Excellence, 5 stars. El Jefe 442. This podcast gets me through the traffic to and from work. Listening makes you want to turn wrenches after hours and grind out some progress on my truck. Shout out from the Midwest, KCMO. Keep calm in, Missouri, or KC, Missouri. A little chive action there. So Midwest, KC, Missouri. That's El Jefe 442. 5 stars. Thanks, brother.
5 star, perfect. Thank you.
Zip Tie 5 stars by Daggers Strays. Awesome job, Ronnie. I enjoy listening and look forward to the next episode. Keep up the good work. Zip Tie 5 stars. Thanks, brother.
5 star, perfect. Thank you.
Very cool podcast for C10 truck enthusiasts. 5 stars by T Dennis 67. I think that's Tracy. I'm pretty sure it is. I met you at C10 Sickness at Wrench Wars. It is Tracy. And started listening to your podcast. Very cool. I have been able to stop listening, doing the catch up on your pod episodes. I also hung your posters in my garage. Keep it going.
5-star, perfect. Thank you.
Tracy, thanks, brother. For the audience, I was on Wrench Wars with brother JD, and I chewed him up because he had some Volvo and I think Dodge Ram parts in the C10. So thanks for taking the time, Tracy, to do that. I appreciate you sending the 5-star review, even though I dinged you on your truck a little bit. But it was a fun time. We had a good time. All right, 3 reviews, 5 stars. Thanks so much for doing that. If you guys would, please take the time to share the pod, love the pod, like the pod, rate the pod. That helps me. And by helping me, I can keep bringing it on back to you. Let's see here. What else do I want to tell you guys about? Street Trucks, hot off the presses. October issue is out. You got an NNBS on the cover, which is bitchin', freaking slammed on the ground. But this is probably my favorite issue ever, and that's for more than one reason. I'll tell you the reason that you're probably not going to think is that my wife and I wrote it, and then she took the pics. We all went out to crawfish cruising. Autumn, my lovely wife, and we did a little write-up, and they liked it. I wasn't sure if it was going to go in the Builder's Guide or Street, but here it is, sitting in Street. So it's pretty cool to co-tag team an article with your wife. She took the pics and I wrote the rote. So pretty cool. But also Yellowstone is in Street for, let's see here, I'm going through page 42, I think it was. But yeah, there she is. So Brian Good from Grindr took the pics, and Mike Self did the write-up. We went up to the mountains. We had a blast. That's pretty cool for me because Yellowstone's been in the Builder's Guide, but never in Street, and I've never been in Street. So an honor to be here and to have the truck in there. And the truck is, I think, seen by a lot of you guys, but I think now with it getting out into Street, it's going to have a little bit even more love. And that's cool. When you build something, you want people to see it and you want to kind of show it off. So pretty bitchin'. Really bitching. So Street Trucks October issue. You know what else they have for the OBS? Since this is OBS Talk, let me find that page. But they have a whole section on the sport truck movement, a body style that sparked an entire culture. And it's a really good little write-up by Mike Alexander, and tons of rad retro style pictures, because if you think about it, they had so much to pull from. So you've got all the old sport truck covers and pictures and some of the different Beltec stuff. So check that out. Pretty good little write-up. Good job, Mike, and some pretty killer pictures in there. Definitely motivate the guys thinking about doing those old school paint jobs. And when you look at some of that stuff, especially from, an OBS perspective, we're here, we're talking about it. And like I said at the beginning, they're coming back, they're moving. And it shows when they get in magazines like that. I definitely think you're going to see some retro style paint jobs that will evolve, and I'm excited about that. Speaking of Yellowstone, one thing that I wanted to mention, kind of going through my notes here. It's sold. Yeah, so today I had a phone call. I came to terms with somebody and sold it. So we'll see. I'll keep you guys posted, but that happened today. So that was, and I'll get into it more, but people are like, how could you sell that truck? Why would you sell that truck? I know it's probably not the best analogy, but if you've ever heard the term, show me the hottest girl in the room, and I'll show you a guy who's tired of, you guys figure it out, boning her. I don't know if it's just that, but I feel like I've accomplished everything I wanted to accomplish with Yellowstone. I took a long bed crew cab. I put a camper in it, both. And we traveled a lot. 3 times to LST, 3 times to Cali, LS Fest, once to Nevada. So I traveled a lot. The only thing, if you could just in some crazy, crazy world, if I could have taken the truck to Yellowstone, that would have been the absolute epic trip that I would have enjoyed or loved to do. I enjoyed it, but it is a big truck. It is a big camper. and I've got other builds that I want to build. And that's really what it comes down to. I love the truck. I'll never forget the truck. It'll always be a big part of who I am, and my kids will never forget the truck either. So when it comes down to it, rad truck, good to us, good to my family. I will be sad. I mean, I'll be sad to see it go on down the road, and I'll miss it. But, you know, just like all the trucks, you kind of move on and you find another one, and that's what'll happen. So I will share with you who is buying the truck or who has bought the truck probably next episode. So tune in for that. Some shows. Let's hit some shows. So in Idaho, they're having C10s at the Island, and that's September 8th. That's at Idaho's Eagle Island State Park. You can hit up Oval Shark on Instagram, on the Insta Wiener, and hit him up. So Idaho C10s at the Island, September 8th. September 15th, we will be in Auburn, California for the C10 intervention. I believe that is sold out at like 450, maybe 500. September 15th. September 21st, we'll be in C10s in the park in Waxahachie. I believe that's also sold out. It looks like October 26th, this is a new one. This is the C10 Revival, and this is going to be in North Carolina. Let me click over to his email just so I make sure I don't miss anything. Remember, if you have a show announcement and you want me to announce it, you got to email it to me. If you don't email it to me, if you send it to me on InstaWiener, I'll lose it. I mean, you gotta shoot it over to me in email form. Just dropping you a line to see if you would shout us out. C10 Fall Revival in Oakboro, North Carolina on October 26th. From 9 to 3 p.m. Free food, no entry cost, non-trophy event, just a good time, cool trucks, great people. So you can hit up, it looks like, I know I reposted it. I don't know if they made an Instagram page, the C10 Revival, but Cusio Sanchez, he's got that rad blazer, Cusio Sanchez. He's one of the guys, C10 Club North Carolina, which I think is C10 Club NC. You can check them out. So they're going to be putting that on C10 Revival, and that's going to be October 26th. And then, of course, Dino's Get Down November 15th. And I had somebody ask me today what time. 11 o'clock. Watch the little video on my story. 11 o'clock. He wants people there at 11 o'clock on Friday. You can get in Wednesday if you want to fly in Wednesday. Thursday is going to be the mixer over at Trey Fives. Friday's the get down all day. Saturday, Seth at Switch Suspension is going to have a barbecue. We're going to be cruising around. There's going to be an after party on Friday night and an after party, and I guess an after party on Saturday night. So, there's going to be a lot going on. In the area, again, watch the story, but the area where we're going to be, it's bitching. So it'll be a good time. I'll lose my voice all of a sudden. I've been working out in the shop all day, trying to get Orange Slice ready because we are going on a 2-week little trip here from C10 Interventions to C10s in the park. The Ride Tech, I'm telling you guys, man, is coilover setup. Today I was working on the front. The one thing you do have to do, you have to kind of cut the cross member to accept the kind of the new, I guess I would kind of call it a spring perch, but it's for the top of the coilover. So worked on that all day. So tomorrow, hopefully a front end install, and then start working on some gauges. I got some Dakota Digitals I got to do. What else? I got those Wham rods. Those are the sweet square body hood hinges. So I got to put those in. I got rid of the old ones. One of them was just junk. A lot of little things. Carpet. Seat's been done. Dom did a great job on the seat. So then I'll just start buttoning it up. Hopefully I'm running some Toyos. Those should be here. And then I'm super duper crossing my fingers some US mags and the Indy haulers. Pretty bitching. So that's it for me. I'm gonna get to it. Mark has a ton of stuff going on. He is very he first of all, I've already, just from the time, I wish I would have interviewed him 5 years ago. He's such a great guy. We, hit it off. I mean, I really enjoy talking to him. I really enjoy listening to him. He's extremely knowledgeable. He's been around the block like probably about 5 times. He knows a ton of people in the automotive world, the automotive industry. He moved from Canada to work for Boyd. Didn't really work out unfortunately, because of Boyd's untimely death. And then I'll just let you listen to the rest of the story. It's a great story. He's a great dude. I'm honored to have him on here, especially for the first episode for OBS Talk. I think he'll be back because he has so many things, a lot of irons in the fire, and a lot of really cool things on the horizon. I'm sure he wanted to talk about some of it. Ideally, it would have probably been best to have him on in December, to be honest with you. But we had him on first episode, so it'll be right at September here. We're right up pushing against it. He'll be back for sure. He's got a lot going on, and a really good dude who loves trucks. He loves cars. He loves trucks. Again, he was on Overhauling for 4 years. So enjoy, Mark. Mark, thank you so much for your time, and thanks for coming on OBS Talk #1. Appreciate it, brother. For you guys, please do what you do. Share the pod. Love the pod. Rate the pod. Let us know if you need cool gear. Support those that support us. And get online there, c10nation.com. Have a great week. Happy August. I think there's a holiday coming up. What is it? Labor Day? Yeah. I'm trying to think when the next pod. I don't think the next pod will drop. So happy Labor Day. That's a big one coming up. I think next weekend. So I have the next guest scheduled. I'm rambling at this point. I think tomorrow I'm interviewing him. So, thanks, guys. OBS Talk, out. Late. All right. Welcome, Mark. C10
nice
Talk. So, it's funny, your name for the audience, Mark Oya. How do you say it? How do you say it? I want to make sure.
You pronounced it correctly.
I did say it right?
You said it right. That's the first time.
Oh yeah. So I kind of get that Canadian, North Dakota. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right. More to the north of Dakota to Canada.
Yeah, all the way across the border.
We'll go across the border into the snow. Yeah,
all the way up. So how many? Give me some names. Did your friends make fun of you, or what? Not necessarily a negative way, but what was a nickname for you growing up?
No, just pretty much just that would be about it. And because most people couldn't pronounce it, so when they pronounced it wrong, you just gave up. That was just the end of it. And we learned to just not to react to that. And so it was basically but everybody, I've always just been called Mark. I think because people look at my last name, and even when you spell it for somebody, it's 3 letters.
Yeah.
And
yeah. OJA for the audience. C10 Talk, C10 Nation, OBS Talk, our first OBS takeover. This is #1 for OBS Talk. We're super stoked to have Mark Oya on the pod, and Mark has a deep, very very bountiful resume of automotive history, and from Canada to California. And we can't wait to dive in and kind of really get into one thing I was telling Mark is there's so much history that I had to really make a highlighted note to say, oh yeah, this is going to be, no pun intended, oh yeah, this is going to be an OBS Talk episode because there's so much awesome automotive stuff that we could talk about, and we'll kind of tap into a little bit of all that. So who is Mark Oya?
Well, I'm basically, quite simply, a Canadian who loves cars, and when you grow up in Canada loving cars, you realize quite quickly that you need to move to the States. So there's, I started, I'm actually in Canada a licensed collision repair refinisher, and that's what we did in Canada. So my wife and I, we had our own shop. We had a couple shops, and then I spent the last 13 years working as the director of fixed operations for a large GM dealership. So I ran parts, service, and body. And that was fun, and it was a good experience because there was a lot of stuff that you can learn from that environment. And it's a lot of stuff, basically being accountable for your time and your technician's time. And so we kind of looked at things a little bit differently when it came to running a shop. But I used to come down and work for Boyd. And I had a really great boss at the GM dealer where I'd just go to him and say, hey, I want to go to California for 4 weeks. And he'd be, yeah, no problem. And I'd come to Southern California and I'd hang out at Boyd's, and then I'd go back. And, the first couple times it was a little bit overwhelming coming down here. Like, I'm from a town of 50, 60,000 people, and you come to a place where there's a couple 100,000 people, and, it was quite a different environment.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, that's crazy. California, in Southern California.
Yeah, because you're just, and there's just so much car stuff and so much going on. But also the whole environment's different, the living environment. and traveling and everything that you have to do. So we came back and forth probably 4 or 5 times, and then decided to move down here and actually stay. And unfortunately, we moved down here in December of 2007. And shortly after that, Boyd passed. So that didn't go well.
Yeah, that's unfortunate for sure. You know, how did that come about? How did you just say I'm gonna? And how did you form your relationship with Boyd first and foremost?
Well, if you back it up, so when
beep,
you go into
beep beep beep, that's my sound effects, my high tech production studio.
If you go, so we were just north of Detroit, Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, which is straight north of Detroit. So we would obviously go to Detroit Autorama, and we'd go to St. Ignace, to the big car show in St. Ignace that they had every year. And so we'd go to Detroit, and the first time that I saw Boyd there, I knew him from all the magazines and stuff. And, you know, obviously we didn't have the internet and all that kind of great stuff that we have now, which makes communicating, you know, super easy, like we're doing right now. You know, and I just walked up to him, introduced myself, and talked to him, and he was great. And that would have been around 96, probably 90, 95, 96, somewhere. I think they had Boyd Air there. In another booth, they had Cadzilla, the Eliminator Coupe, the 2 Harleys. I always remember that. So, you know, we got to see these cars, and then we'd go to St. Ignace to the car show. And the big deal at St. Ignace really was California Street Rods, because they were at the time doing all the trucks and all the concept cars for General Motors. So they'd bring 8, 10 cars out there. And the next year they brought Boyd up there. He was the special guest. And so I just made a point of finding him and going and talking to him. And, you know, and we just struck up a relationship, and it was good. And, you know, it was never really feasible to go there until our kids were older and grown up and gone to school. And at that point, when they were in university, it was like, okay, we can take off and leave now. So like I said, we did those. We used to come down and work and go back, and we'd vacation down here and go back. And so it kind of gave us a feel for it. Then we decided that it was time to go. And unfortunately, though, his passing, obviously, very untimely in many ways.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you've put a few eggs in one basket, and not only from a perspective of you and your wife and the move, but obviously the legend, you know, passing is still to this day. You know, when you listen to the Hot Rods by Boyd podcast, you know right away. You know, it's just one of those things where the legend died way too soon.
Oh, that's for sure. And the problem I had was that I didn't know anybody else. I only knew Boyd. I didn't have a backup plan. And because I never anticipated that anything was going to happen. So the only way, you know, then you start going through the immigration process. And if you have, you know, if you're working at Boyd's, you can get he can sponsor you. You can go through the whole system, and that's how that would work. And it's a fairly common thing to do. But with him gone and I didn't know anybody, I had to start my own shop. And so that's what we did. And we never intended to do that. That was never what we were going to do, was, you know, like, we're not going to move to Southern California and start our own shop. But we were determined to stay. So the only way to stay was to find somebody else to work for. But I was kind of the same thing that was like that legend. I was working at Boyd's, and, like, you know, where am I going to go from there? There's lots of great shops and lots of great things to do, but I didn't know anybody. I didn't have a relationship with anybody. So to walk in the door to a shop and say, oh yeah, you know, I want to come to work. Oh, by the way, we have to do all the visa work. It didn't seem like a feasible thing. So we started our own shop, and that's how that came about.
So you sold everything that you had up there, obviously, or did the kids take it over, or what happened in all the Canadian stuff, or had you already sold and then you were working at a GM dealership?
Yeah, we had already closed our shop because they were building a bypass on the freeway, and it was going to bypass our shop, and we'd no longer be on the main travel. So it was like, okay, that's the end of that. And then I was working at the GM dealership, and then so basically we had started to downsize to the point where we could pick up and go. And we left my wife's son, my stepson, he stayed in our house. And the best friend of mine to today, Joe Hendershot, he still lives in Canada. He's an American living in Canada, so he's totally backwards to everybody else.
Totally backwards.
He has all my shop stuff and everything. So he took command of that. And so we did that for about a year, and then we found out that we'd have to pay income tax in Canada on our American earnings and our Canadian with the house. So we ended up selling the house. So we have nothing left in Canada at all. And And so we're committed to staying here. So, but we've been here 11 years now.
Yeah.
So it's
Good.
a long time.
Well, we're glad to have you. Let's back it all the way up to young Mark. How did you get into cars, and how did that process start?
It was very simple. It was all my dad. Everything I learned and everything I did was from my dad. So he was extremely talented in a bunch of different ways. He didn't want to ever rely on anybody for anything, and he was a construction electrician by trade, but he built his own houses, did his own plumbing, did all the electrical, and on top of it, he fixed his own cars. And so he would paint his own cars, and little one-car garage and with a fan in it. And so right from an early age, I started sanding cars, 7, 8, 9 years old, and we do jobs for the neighbors. And so it was kind of fun because I don't know, like it's just one of those things that it just happened. Like there was really no plan, or there was no, I just did it. And so all through high school, well, except for 1 year. So I would stay home in the summertime from school and I would paint my neighbors' cars. And then the second, I think grade 10, I got a job at the high school in the audio video department. And I hated it. It was terrible. I didn't want to do that job. And so we ran that job out and that was it. And then every other year after that, I just stayed home and painted cars. And then I went to college for mechanical engineering. And that was a huge mistake because I started into that. And then, it's obviously a lot of math, a lot of drawing. And at first I thought it was fun. And then I realized that I'm just going to be sitting at a desk drawing stuff and calculating the load of something on something. And so I bailed out of that and went and got a job at a Ford dealership at the body shop. And that was, I think that's what's been interesting for me. And a lot of people disagree with my thought process on some of this, but a lot of guys, to me, should learn how to do collision work first and then work on old cars, because you can't oblong the holes on a new car, and everything has to be straight, everything has to fit. You have to know how to fit stuff properly and quickly because you're on flat rate and stuff. So you really learn a lot of good basics. And I've seen a lot of guys that don't have that, and they get it done, but they struggle with it. And so I found that learning how to do collision work and replace panels and replace quarter panels and rocker panel sections and everything has made the hot rod work a lot easier. And then same with the paint work, like where, we keep up on the current standards of how everything's done. And it's different for hot rods, but it's not. There's a lot of stuff that carries over the same. So I just thought, I'm going to learn as much as I can about that. Then I'm going to go back into hot rods again.
I would think that it would be a patient situation, being, my patience. So the newer collision stuff, you're just repairing each panel. It's kind of a, you're swapping in, swapping out. And we're definitely one of those, communities of, no, you don't need to salvage that, cave it, pave it, and just get rid of that quarter panel, whatever. Whereas in hot rodding, you're doing the opposite. I wonder, hearing you say your lineage, if you learn some of that patience early in the garage with Dad and how to repair that metal, and then you got a taste of, turn and burn, and now you're back to collision. It's kind of funny to see, no matter what, you've got that experience that's always going to make you above and beyond, or high level, because you've got it all. You've done all facets of it from 10 years old on.
Well, I think what you learn with the collision part that a lot of people don't understand is you have to look at not necessarily the turn and burn part of it, but it's the procedure of it. It's how the car, it's what happens from the minute you get the car. So the car comes in, obviously somebody generates an estimate on it, and you've decided what you're going to fix, not fix, what you're going to paint, what you're not going to paint, and the parts have been ordered. And it's more about the procedural part of it, where I see a lot of guys that don't really understand that part of it. And it's not really about the job that you're doing. It's about how you're going to do that job and what format you're going to follow and how you're going to utilize your time to the best advantage that you have. And so that's where I found it to be beneficial. Also, it gives you some kind of guidelines on time. So if you've got, for example, say flat rate on changing a fender on an OBS truck was only 1.8 hours, maybe, I don't even know. It's, so if you fast forward to today and you've got a guy in your shop and he's taking that truck apart and putting it back together again, you have a little bit of indication of time. And there, because if you're doing it for a customer and you're charging for it, there has to be some kind of balance there where you can charge a reasonable rate, but the guy can't spend 6 hours on it.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense, because you're saying they get the book says this is what it's going to take. So you're challenging yourself on a time perspective, whereas in the hot rod world, sometimes there's maybe no book, because it's like, well, it's, there's no 67, Chevelle book on this is how long it should take. Right.
But in your mind, you kind of look at it and think, okay, it's old and you're going to have some fastener problems and somebody's probably worked on it before, but you still have to have some kind of guidelines so you can tell the customer what it is. So that's where I found that stuff to help out a lot, that you can think about it and say, okay, I know if I pull the front end off that, it's going to take this many hours and it's going to take this many to put it back together. And then you think, okay, let's take that number. Let's just say it's 20. Now we want to do it really nice. So it's going to be 40 or whatever the number is, but it's not going to be 200 though.
Yeah.
To have, because if you're going to price that job for a customer, how are you going to price it?
Do you, I think you probably have such a high-end clientele for the hot rodding phase of it. Do you recall a time where, I assume it's a lot, but where clients are saying, how many hours did that take you guys? I mean, you had this many hours, you had 80 hours, 100 hours, 2,000 hours in paint and body, and they're just like, I'm sorry, but I didn't fathom that it would cost that much at X rate, because that's the challenging part probably of owning a hot rod shop.
It is, and basically I don't like to let it roll. I never let it roll, and so there's no surprises. And I tell them, usually right now we're building about 8 cars, so I'll talk to everybody on Monday morning or Friday afternoon, depending. So that's another thing I do. I only give them a short window of time, because I can't have people calling me all day every day. And so if you want pictures, you're going to get pictures on Friday at 5, and that's it. Don't call me on Tuesday afternoon and want a picture of it. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do it Friday at 5. And either I'll talk to you Friday or Monday, and I'll lay out the week. So, okay, we're going to be blocking this week. It's going to take all week. So that customer knows now there's 40 hours. So, and by doing it every week, then there's never any surprises. And they get a feel for it. And if you get somebody that wants to shortcut or is trying to save money, that's just not the right job for us. And we've had a few where we've had to, wrap them up and move on, because it just doesn't work for, because we like to try and think that you're only as good as your last job. So they got to keep getting better.
Yeah.
They can't go backwards.
I know some business guys where they tend to say, okay, well, this is how much I'm in it, and then they'll start negotiating after the fact, and you're like, hold on, this isn't one of your merger deals. This is the hot rod shop. You're not allowed to say, okay, well, I've got, this many hours this week, and you're like, well, can you bill me for 28? I know you just did 46, and the guys stayed over, and you start to get negotiation where it's probably a little better when you keep, those weekly tabs and hopefully weekly payments, because I feel like, if somebody gets up to the 2,000 hour mark and you're like, hey, you owe me, $26,000, and they're like, let's just call it 18 and make it good. You're like, no, it's not how it works.
That's why you can't do that, because every deal has to stand on its own. The time's the time. Now, the other thing you got to think about, and here's what a lot of people don't think about, and it's something I learned at General Motors. How efficient are your guys?
Sure.
That's something you really have to look at, because, I look at it all the time, because that's one thing I learned in 13 years of running a GM dealership, is that you've got a whole scope of people there, that you've got guys that are 120% efficient on flat rate, mechanics, making great money, making 60, 70 hours a week, no problems. You've got a guy making 40 hours a week. You got a guy that consistently makes 32, 35 hours a week. Can't get any higher than that. So if that guy, if over the scope of, say, a 3-month period is only making 35 hours a week, well, you can't charge the customer. So you either got to get rid of the guy and try and get a better guy, or you got to teach them how to do the job better. So I always take a look at that too, because everybody has strengths and weaknesses. I have them. We all have them. So it's like, I don't like to weld. And so I just don't like it. And so if I'm on a project for 6 hours, that's not good time management for me. Somebody else should be doing that, So you got to try and pair the guy with the right job so that he can be productive. And, no cell phones at work. We don't have anybody that smokes. So, that helps because all those things take away time. And, so hopefully you try to get those guys up to where they're, but I like to think 85, 90% is a good number, that because nobody's 100% efficient. It's impossible. There's always going to be that time you spend on something that you can't bill for.
You brought up some of the things you said, from a perspective of you got to teach that guy. Mostly, I don't know that growing up watching the show that I ever got this out of Boyd, but definitely from the podcast and listening, the Dwayne example is a perfect example. Just say, that Boyd would always teach people. He would take labor in and he would try his hardest to just teach them because he needed labor to get the jobs done, and whether it was from the wheels to the polishing. And what is something that you look back in that time that you did, have with Boyd? What's something you take away from that?
Well, it's funny you mention that because what he did to me was when I first started there, he said, "How good are you at TIG welding?" And I said, "Well, not very," because it wasn't something we did a lot of. And so he said, "Well," he goes, every night after work, he said, "Just go back there." He goes, "Go back there right now and just weld for the rest of the day. Just find some pieces, weld them together. Come in tonight, weld some stuff together, come in on Saturday, weld some stuff together." So he was always like that, where he, even though I wanted to work more so in the body shop, and do prep and paint and stuff like that, like it was important to learn that stuff. But he was good about that. He was like, go learn how to, like he's willing to pay you to go learn how to do that. And I've kind of carried that forward with my guys, where I'll ask them, what do you really like to do? What part are you going to be good at? And then let's focus on that and find ways to make you more efficient on that. Because I don't want to be in the situation I was in. I don't want to be a welder. I learned how to weld, but I don't want to be a welder. So it was time well spent to a point. And then after that, you got to move on to the next thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's so cool. You also have to have people preferably that like to be challenged, and so I do want to be the best, and then eventually say, all right, I'm not going to be the best TIG welder. I'm not going to be the best MIG welder, but I'm going to kick ass over here in paint and body prep, interiors, electronics, whatever it is.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the thing is for the guys working together is for each one to understand to a certain extent what the other guy has to do, so that he understands like, oh, this has to be done a certain way so that when it goes to body and paint, like we need that gap or we need that space or we need to be able to remove that panel or, so a lot of it is teaching them how to work with each other too, where, something has to get done where it's serviceable after or it's usable after. And so a lot of guys don't think about that. A lot of guys will weld something up and then it's like, okay, how are we going to paint that? Or how are we going to prep that? There's different, especially on some of the more custom stuff that we're doing, where you got to really think about, we're doing it's basically a street outlaw style 69 Mustang right now, full tube chassis, 950 horsepower. And all the panels in the back, we put the cage in it and hid the cage, but we had to make all the other panels removable so that they could be upholstered. So I really had to think about it because they didn't want it to be just a tin car, that everything had to go in there. And so it's like it has to go around the roll bars, but then it has to finish off all the edges and stuff like that. So you really got to think about how some of these things are going to go together after, especially if you don't want to see any fasteners.
From the perspective of the couch, sitting and watching some of the shows where you get some of that drama where, maybe the paint and body guy or the interior guy and they're, trying to work things out. For me, I realized real quick doing some custom homes and building homes and stuff like that. I'm not a home builder, but I built my own home and remodeled my own home. And I could tell you framers and electricians and plumbers, they can't get along. So you're like, holy shit, the framer's like, no, they just leave it like that. And then the plumber comes in and starts cutting and burning and welding. And, you're like, and then it's like, oh my God, I got to keep these guys separate from one another. I don't even want to book them on the same day because they're, God forbid they're not going to, get along. At least there you've got them all under the same roof.
Right. And then you can manage them.
Try to manage them.
Yeah.
So how does a guy go from, let me, one of the questions I have for you, what was your first car? What was your first truck?
Or car, 65 Mustang.
Come on. How does that happen? How do you get a 65 Mustang? That's pretty rad ass.
It was. And it actually was, I'm trying to think of how, so where my dad grew up it was basically on the edge of town and it was a little farmhouse. And one day I was 14 or 15 and we just drove up there just to see what was going on. And he said, well, just to drive by the farm and see what's going on. So it's like, okay. And there was a little V in the road, and the house on the corner, there was a 65 Mustang sitting there, and it was blue and had a black vinyl top on it. Turns out it wasn't a vinyl top. It had been a vinyl top car. Somebody had taken it off and sprayed the roof with that like rocker guard. So it had a little bit of texture to it. And so I said, oh, look at that car. I'd love to have that car. And because my dad was a car guy, you know, not so much in the old cars, but he goes, oh, we'll stop and look at it. So we stopped, and the guy wanted $50 for it. And so I bought it.
Damn, son. $50 Canadian or $50 American?
It was Canadian. Yeah. So, and that was kind of, so that was the first car. And the first truck, actually, I bought from my dad. So in 1983, and everyone's going to laugh, but in 83, my dad bought one of the very first Ford Ranger pickups.
Okay.
But he bought a short bed, 2-wheel drive, bright red truck. And so it was, you know, for a 16-year-old kid, for me, it was awesome.
Yeah.
Because, you know, so my dad and I went to the Indy 500. We had friends in Indianapolis, so we used to go down there and go to the race. So we went down there, and we're driving around Indy, and I saw this rim and tire store, you know, because you don't see those in Canada. There's no strictly, not like there was down in the U.S. And I can remember I bought 4 chrome Krager rims for $200, and I had to borrow the money from my dad. And we went back and put them on that truck, and I drove that truck forever. Like, I drove that truck, I don't even know how many miles it had on it, probably 200. It's still going now. It's been restored multiple times, and it's still in my hometown.
Wow. Yeah, you were the coolest kid in town with a little bright red 83 Ranger and those wheels and yeah, you were definitely. You guys see Mark's truck?
Yeah, yeah. Everybody knew whose it was, and we drove it when it needed to be painted, I actually painted it Boyd red instead of the factory red, and so I think that's where, you know. But there was just no scene up there. There's no vibe. There's nothing going on.
Sure.
You know, there's cars and stuff, but it's not like here where there's something every day. You know, there's just not that much happening, unfortunately.
So far I've got down that you're a Ford guy for sure here. We've got a Ford Mustang and a Ford Ranger, so this might not be going in the direction I was hoping. We're gonna.
Well, that's a swing, yeah, but don't forget 13 years at a GM dealer.
Yeah, that might offset it just a little bit. Yeah, it kind of works out, but. So then fast forward now, so you've got Boyd. It's one thing to have Boyd Connington and under your belt, or, you know, again, a relationship. You worked with him, and then overhauling. How does that happen?
That was kind of a cool situation because, so if you back up a little bit,
beep, beep.
Yeah. So you get into the visa stuff that you have to, you know, and the visa stuff has been a struggle. It's been a 10-year struggle. A lot of people don't realize what it takes to stay in the U.S. legally and do everything properly. So, you know, we go into the e-visa, and so I rent a little shop, and you have to do the e-visa, you have to rent the shop, you have to have customers, you have to do...
Go back to do the, what is it?
To do the visa.
Oh, okay, the visa. Okay, yeah.
So I rented a little shop in Huntington Beach, and it was 1,200 square feet. So we obviously outgrew that fairly quickly. And just up around the corner was Chip's shop, and 2 doors down there was a shop that was 2,400 square feet, and it wasn't much more money. So I went and talked to the guy, and he said, yeah. So we made a deal. We moved into that shop, and I didn't move into that shop because Chip was there. I moved into it because it was, you know, a third more money, but it was twice the size.
Now, you and Chip had known each other, right? Because you had worked together at Boyd's?
No, he was never at Boyd's when I was there.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Wow. Never met him. I'd seen him at car shows and said hi to him and stuff, but never really met him. So I would stop in there and say hi to him and do different, you know, just hang out a little bit and everything. But I never worked with him or anything. And so one day I'm working in that shop, and this fellow comes over, and he's a body man, and he's looking for work. And I said, no, I don't have any work, because it was me and a friend of mine. We're just doing it all ourselves and everything. I said, I can't help you. I said, where do you work now? He said, California Street Rods. I said, oh, okay, where's that? And just 2 streets over, Palmdale. So Palmdale Lane. So I was like, okay. So I said, no, sorry, I can't help you. He leaves. And you know, sometimes you're not that bright when you think you're bright, but about 2 hours later, I'm like, oh, if they're not working over there, if they're not doing anything in their body shop, maybe I should go look at their body shop, because we were borrowing a spray booth and stuff. So I went over there and I met Chuck Lombardo Sr. and Chuck Jr. And I knew who they were from seeing them in St. Ignace and stuff like that. And I said, well, what do you want to do? And they said, you can rent this shop from us. And because we're not, we don't have that much going on anymore. And so that's how I met Steve Stanford.
How funny is that, though, to think that you came down, would go to the shows in the U.S., and then that name pops up, and now you're right down the road, and and now you're in their shop. I mean, you're there.
6 months later, I'm in. It's crazy when you think about it. And so we got along really great, and Steve was in the front office doing all his artwork in that building, and so he just stayed, and so and I knew who Steve was, obviously, and. Actually, I'd gone around and tried to find him.
Yeah, for the audience, Steve Stanford. We're going to get into some Steve Stanford love with him because you guys are pretty tight, and I assume some type of business partner together because you guys do a lot, and we'll get into that here. So you guys this is kind of, it's all coming together. This is this melting pot of Mark and your history. It's pretty crazy.
It is nuts because like when I think back about it, how it all unfolded, it was not planned or meant to be. And that wasn't I was going to come down, work at Boyd's, learn as much as I could. We were on American Hot Rod. We were shooting that at the time. I'm on a couple episodes of that, the Bud Light car and the Hildebrandt 33. And it wasn't even the TV stuff. It was just like my dedication to Boyd was long prior to that. Like Burn Loose Coupe and Jamie Musselman's Roadster and that. So now I'm at California Sheet Rods, basically. So they're in the big building beside me, and then I've got the body shop. And so I'm building a couple cars in there. And I'd go to Chips once in a while and just talk to him and hang out usually at night, 8, 9 o'clock at night, on the way home or something. And he literally, one day, he just walked in the shop and said, hey, we're going to start doing overhauling again. And would you like to be part of it? And I said, yes. And he went, okay.
So he knew who you were, though. There must have been some, obviously your reputation preceded itself in the perspective that, the Canadian kid was here and you were kicking ass.
I've never asked him. I don't really know the scope of that because I've never really asked him that.
Yeah, you're like, I don't care. He asked me, I'm good to go. However it happened, it's like, this shit's good.
Yeah. And I just said yes. And he said, okay. So the executive producer then was a guy named Lenny. And he says, this guy Lenny's going to call you. And, away you go. And that was it.
That was it. It was easy money. Hey, I got this. Let me see here if I can get this. See if I actually thought when I pulled this up that this was actually the theme song for the show. I don't think I realized that it was an actual band that made a video. Yeah, I'm like...
That's awesome.
It's a great tune, dude. I'm surprised it doesn't have more views.
I can't remember who did that.
Let's see here. Their name is Kicking Harold.
That's right.
Yeah, Kicking Harold. It only has 181,000 views, 74 comments. I'm literally assuming because most people just probably thought it was the theme song for Overhauling versus some song that they pulled, and this band, maybe a one-hit wonder, or if you even want to call it that. But every time I watch Overhaul and the beginning starts, I hear that song. You're like, this is a rad song, and then you're just on to the next thing. So I'm sure at night at some point in your life, and this is probably why I presume that you are sought after, and these other people, your relationship with Boyd, Chip, Steve, is because you're even keel, right? But you got to sit there and sometimes think the kid from Canada, this is a big deal. This is kids from America. This is young men, whoever. This is Overhaul. And this is Chip Foose. This is Boyd Coddington. This is Steve Stanford. This is some really American hot rod lineage to the peak. Do you sometimes just say, babe, pinch me? Am I dreaming? Am I here? You're hitting a lot of, it's one thing to do one of these things, but you've got multiple different things of success and, in history within American automotive, at least in the last 20 plus years.
I just feel that I'm very fortunate. I don't. I do look back at it sometimes and wonder how it all happened, because it's just been a series of events. And when you put it all together now and look at it, it's kind of bizarre when you think about it. And the whole thing that people don't realize is that when I worked at Boyd's and I was friends with Boyd, and I'd never ever thought of being on overhauling. It wasn't on my radar. Like, it wasn't, I liked watching it, and I liked Chip and everything. But I never sat there and thought, oh, it'd be cool to be on that. It never entered my mind. And then when he asked me, I was like, yeah, okay, that'd be cool. And I guess because I was so fixated on the Boyd stuff that it wasn't really something that I thought about. And I've just been extremely fortunate. Like, I've met some really good people, and there's been a lot of people help me, and a lot of people, California Street Rods helped me a lot. Chip helped me a lot. Boyd obviously didn't have the opportunity because of everything that happened there, that, I think we could have done some cool things too. And so there's just been, trying to stay small and just do some cool stuff and work with some cool people has been really good for me. And I'm just so fortunate. I just feel blessed that I've been able to do what I can do and stay here, stay in the U.S. and keep working. It's great.
Back to that visa thing.
Yeah.
I know some Canadians, and there's obviously, we've got Dell, we've got Kevin Stickle, some Canadians in the scene, and I've talked to Dell about it, and it's crazy. Some of the stuff that has to happen. Kevin Stickle, Digital C10, I'm always like, dude, you've got to come down to the States. You've got to move down here. And he's like, I can come down for, 1 day under 6 months, I think, or something like that. And he's, consumed with his job there and his career up in Canada. And I know at times he said he would love to come down to Phoenix or California, somewhere where it's warm, because he loves the warmth. But it does, I think we take it for granted in the state of the United States where we are right now when it comes to immigration. And then when you really sit down, and this is, I do not want to get on a political soapbox off to the, the crazy right or the crazy left, but it's amazing to hear somebody like yourself when you say, you don't understand how hard it is to become a citizen. I'm working my butt off here. I'm doing all these other things, and I'm trying to do it right. And it's not easy by any means.
It's not. It's difficult. And, and the thing is too, on the e-visa that I was on, you actually, for visa renewals, you have to go to Canada. You have to go back, and you go to the U.S. consulate in Victoria or in Vancouver. And, it's not a fun deal. You surrender your passport, you go for an interview, you hope you pass, and then you sit in a hotel room for 3 days waiting for your passport to come back. And, then you fly back, and, you've been gone out of town for a week, and it's expensive. And, there's just a lot of stuff has to happen. And it's been a 10-year run, and it's the downside of this. It's like, we're past it all now, and we're good now, but it took 10 years.
Okay, so you're good now.
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah. Congratulations.
Yeah, we're all done. And actually, what I'm on now, and my attorney, for whatever reasons, he decided there's what's called a special skills visa. And so he thought that I would qualify for that. And it's kind of, if you're the best at something in another country, that's how you would come to the U.S. And I don't consider myself to be the best at anything. Like, I'm still just trying to learn as much as I can and do every job I do, I try to do it better. And so we compiled everything that I've done in the last 10 years and submitted it. And we actually obtained that visa. And so that was cool. Because it took the load off of me for as far as everything else goes, and it's made my life a lot easier. So I'm really happy with that. So
good.
It's one obstacle out of the way.
lot less hoops. Congratulations. That's the irony of that too, I believe, is the information and the knowledge that about American history and our culture supersedes anything that you could probably quiz me and I'd fail. I think that when I talk to people that are becoming citizens, you're like, yeah, I failed out of that. Yeah, I don't know that, and then you're like, what? You guys don't know this? This is what they made me learn.
Yeah.
Where's Mark? He's studying tonight. He's trying to become a citizen.
Yeah. So we're all good now. So we don't have anything to worry about now. We can hang out here as much as we want, and we're all set. So.
Good. So how does a guy explain to the audience how that works. So you're painting, at California Street Rods, right? Are you like employed there, or you're just painting there?
No, it's my own shop.
Yeah, your own shop, but you're next to them. And then how does that work to get into overhauling? Is that like, now I just took on a second job, or my skill set at, the shop is now gets put on hold because I'm committed to X amount of time at, overhauling? So you bought a C10 and it either had AC at one time or it wasn't even an option. Well, Vintage Air has the solution for you. Their SureFit kits are designed to place the evaporator and hoses behind the dash for a factory clean look. In most cases, the SureFit systems will be controlled by your stock dash controls using their exclusive cable converters. In some applications, a new factory look control panel is included with the kit. The SureFit systems provide full OEM-style operations, including air conditioning, floor or vent heating, and a powerful defroster. To retain a true factory look, the AC air exits through the factory dash louvers, if originally equipped in your truck. The Gen 4 kit provides infinite, just right temperature, air blending, and blower fan speed adjustments. The Vintage Air SureFit kits are the best value and the most completely engineered air conditioning system you can install in your C10. Add the fact that Vintage Air has been the most respected name in performance aftermarket climate control systems for 40 years. 40 years? Damn, son. The choice is obvious. VintageAir.com. Since 1986, Precision Replacement Parts has been manufacturing premium quality weather strip. If you need to replace weather stripping on your C10, chances are Precision Replacement Parts makes the seals you need. Windshield seals, rear window seals, door weather strip, glass run channels, belt line moldings, vent window seals, and hood decal seals. Pretty much everything you need, Precision makes. Did you know that Precision also introduced press-on door seals for 60 to 66 and 67 to 72 C10 trucks? These press-on seals are super easy to install and are an awesome upgrade to your build. Simply press them on the body flange and they seal up the cab perfectly. No wind noise, no water leaks, no glue, and no slamming doors. Like all Precision brand weather strip, these new press-on seals are available all over the country from your favorite C10 parts supplier. Don't settle for just any brand of weather strip for your build. Seal your build right and make sure you request Precision brand weather strip from your favorite parts supplier. Demand quality, demand precision.
Right. We had to put everything at our shop we had to put on hold basically, and I had one or two guys there at different times that kept on working, and it was very difficult, but basically we told the customers everything's going to slow down, and we didn't know how long the overhauling was going to go. You do one season, then you do another season, and you roll right into it. Next thing you know, you're doing another season, and we did 4 seasons altogether, and we had no idea that I had no idea anyway that it was going to go that long, and 30 something cars, and so it was a great experience. But it took. We started in Westminster. We did 2 seasons in Westminster, and then we would paint them at my shop. So we would go from it's about 6-7 miles away. We'd build over there, and we'd trailer them down to my shop, paint them, take them back. So then after 2 seasons, is that
custom Rod Garage then at that time? That's so, yeah, because you kind of see that from the show where you're like, okay, they just left, and then I kind of got the feeling that, all right, they're going to Mark's shop now.
Right. So we would come down, shoot the cars at Custom Rod Garage, and then take them back. Well, after the 2 years with that production company, Discovery wanted to make a change, and I'd been obviously good friends with Chuck Lombardo at California Street Rods. They were at that point doing nothing. So I said, well, why don't we move down to the California Street Rods building? And then it's right beside my building, literally, like physically. So we can build in there and we can paint next door, and it'll be a lot easier for everybody. And so we did that. So the last 2 seasons. And so I was contracted. This is what a lot of people don't understand. I've never worked for Foose Design. And technically speaking, I've worked with Chip. Yeah. So I was contracted direct to Discovery, and so I leased them the buildings, and I did all the A-Team guys work for me. So their checks said Custom Rod Garage on them, and the parts and everything all went through us. Workers' comp, everything went through us. So we did all that. My wife did all that paperwork for Discovery, and so we ran that for the last 2 seasons. And it worked out well. We started doing multiple cars at one time. We do 2 cars at once, and we'd get the next two cars there because we had that big parking lot all gated. It was nice. And so but it wore us out though. It was 4 seasons. It was a long run. It was hard. It was a lot of work.
What you were saying, like 36 cars or complete builds at that point for that 4-year period?
Yeah.
Now, how does that explain that? I mean, it's just you're grinding all the time and it doesn't really stop. And then you got the production, you got the cameras, just nonstop, and you're just going. I mean, your life is literally 4 years of overhauling.
Right. So when you agree to do a season, 10 cars, 30 weeks. It's that simple. Every third Friday, you need to reveal a car. No exceptions. And we never failed. We never missed one. And, and it was hard because you're doing ground up builds, and, those cars are nice. Like, they're stripped, they're sandblasted, everything's TIG welded, they're all new parts, and some, really great vendors and really good interior guys and glass guys. And, there's some nice cars, really nice cars. And it's cool because you get to, you immerse yourself in a vehicle for 3 weeks and maybe a week or two ahead of time. But, you learn everything there is to learn about a Sunbeam Tiger. And then next week you learn everything there is to learn about a Buick Skylark convertible. And then, one of my favorites was our 67 C10 pickup. We put a big block in it, and that was a really bitchin' truck. And, and then you're in 63 Cadillac. That was a really cool car. 308 pieces of chrome on that car. So you learn everything you can about a Cadillac, but then the next week you're doing an AMX. And so you learn everything you can. So I'm dangerous in knowing just enough to get in trouble on every one of those cars.
Yeah. I could see where you guys get, overwhelming, where overhauling overwhelming, and you're just like, oh my God, and then I would think the parts guy, whoever's ordering all those parts, would be somewhat frazzled. You got 3 weeks to get all the different parts. Whereas if you're a Mustang shop, if you're a Nova shop, if you're a C10 shop, I mean, not only do you know what you need to order, you've got a shit ton of spare parts all around that you're pulling from. And if it comes down to assembly, you're like, well, just go look at the truck over there. It's right there. It's going to show you exactly what you need to do at times. So that's a challenging part, in itself.
Well, that's the thing. And especially when you're doing multiple builds. So you're thinking ahead, like, you realize, okay, if I'm going to call GM Performance, maybe it's going to take 6 weeks to get a motor, but 5 weeks from now, we're going to start a Cadillac. So you have to be in tune with what's happening, moving on further down the road. And then I had 2 guys that helped me a lot with parts. And I would take the classic catalog, for example, and I would just mark everything I wanted, and I give it to them. I go, now type it out and send it in. And you really learn who the good vendors are. And somebody like Classic Industries, they're just around the corner from us, just saved us so much. And first class guys, everything first class. And really helped us. Vintage Air in Texas, Rick Love.
Yeah, Rick is a great guy.
Unbelievable. Rick at Bear Brakes, all these people that were just, they were just so helpful to us. And that was just a huge team effort. And, the kind of little running joke we had was, if I needed it tomorrow, I'd call you tomorrow. And it can come off both ways.
I need it today. If I needed it tomorrow.
Yeah, if I need it tomorrow, I'd call you tomorrow.
That might be a t-shirt. That might be a new, that might be a billboard. I could see that for sure.
I started using that. I actually got that line from my friend Joe in Canada, and he came up with that, and because they're a big construction company, and they couldn't have a crusher down or something, and so he told me that, and then we just kind of rolled with it. And people took it 2 ways. They'd laugh, or they'd be like, yeah, really?
Yeah. Oh shit, I better get it to you then.
I better get it to you, because we're not fooling around. We have to get it done. And there's no not doing it. We never failed. We never missed. We didn't miss once.
I think too, because the show and Chip and the team, the A team, at this point, the reputation precedes itself, so they know what they're getting into, just as you did. It's like, okay, this is the full service deal, and if I'm going to be an A team contributor, whether it's classic or vintage or Bear or whomever, when they sign up, it's almost like, okay, we're getting this exposure, but we got to be ready to. If I need it tomorrow, I'd call you tomorrow. Let's rock and roll.
Right. Nobody wants to be the obstacle. Nobody wants to be the one that put the thing in jeopardy, and sometimes things happen and it's nobody's fault, and and it's tough to get parts, and some of those obscure cars we did, the Sunbeam Tiger, the AMX, those are difficult cars to get parts for. That 63 Caddy, that was a really tough car to get parts for. But, you know, a Mustang or a Chevy truck or a Camaro, those cars are all fun, and they're a little bit easier. And then the A-Team guys were so good because everybody had their own job that they did and you know, kind of specialized in it. And the guys that really took a hit were the body guys, because doing body work and paint in a short period of time is really hard on you. That's a really tough thing to get done.
That's you.
Yeah, I painted a lot of them, and it was hard. And you know, you're painting at 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, and you know, you just. But at the time, you're in the zone. It's like, you know, this is what we're doing, and we're going to get it done.
Yeah.
You can't think about time or a clock.
I think the zone probably wears itself out, though, eventually. You know, 4 years, that zone starts to, you recalibrate the zone meter.
We were tired in the end.
Yeah, I bet. I wonder, do you think that they, like an AMX or something, do you think that they look at that from the mark perspective and say, all right, if we're going through these applications, you know, we've got a Chevelle, we've got a Nova, a C10, a Mustang, and now we've got an AMX, or we've got, you know, something that's an oddity, and they're like, we really got to, if we're taking this on, we really need a little bit more prep from the perspective of finding these parts, you know?
Well, so it's real simple how this works, because you know, so there's some really great women in a room that read they read them all. They look at them all. But what you have to do, all the submissions, you have to go in and you have to take out the dump trucks, the tow trucks, the stuff that's in Dubai and places like that. So you run through and you take out all the stuff that is, you know, an ambulance, you know, a highway truck. Well, you get everything in these situations. Everybody submits everything they could ever imagine. So then you narrow it down to Southern California, and within about 50 miles of Huntington Beach at the max, because you can't pack this circus up and move it very easily. Like, we take it to SEMA, but that was a major undertaking to go to SEMA. And so you take that out, but then you sit there and you take out every car that's ever been done on overhauling. And that's where the trouble starts.
Yeah.
Because you're going back, we were season 9. So there's 9 seasons. So that's why when you see in season 8, you see a Sunbeam Tiger and an AMX and a Cadillac and, you know, and stuff like that, because you can't do another Mustang, can't do another Nova, can't do another Chevy truck. You know, you've kind of tapped all those out. And so you start looking at these oddball, not oddball cars, like in a negative fashion, but just not mainstream cars.
Yeah, high production stuff that you can't get apart on every corner like we can with, again, the true classic of a Chevelle, a Mustang, a Nova, you know, a Camaro, a C10. When you look back, what's your favorite time? What's your favorite memory of overhauling? When you think of overhauling, what just, you know, you're like, I kind of miss this.
I think it's the reveal at the end of the day, you know, when the person gets to come and, you know, see their car, because, you know, we as car builders, we're around these cars all day. And say you're around a car even in a shop for 2 years while you build the car. Well, you see that thing, but the customer is not seeing what you're seeing. They're seeing something different as it comes together. So when you accelerate that time frame into overhauling, where they're maybe missing their car for a month, 3 weeks, you know, it's a big change. It's a big swing. Like, you know, the thing was sitting in their backyard. It's all dirty. It's got no paint on it. It's a mess. And then all of a sudden it's sitting there and it runs and drives and it looks bitchin'. And you know, I think seeing that initial look on their face was I do miss that, you know, because they're usually shocked. They don't. And then as they go around it and they start looking at it, usually they still take a while to get it. They don't understand really the level of car they're getting, you know, the absolute best of everything. Because we just, like, we don't have time to mess around. We need the best of whatever the very best is. We want that. And because we don't have time to fool around with something. So then they start looking at it and they realize, oh, I got a brand new GM crate motor. I got a brand new transmission. I got a brand new rear end for Mosier. I've got brand new bare brakes. Like, you know, like those are...
What a great point. Something I've never really thought of, and you just nailed it. It's like, if we just load it up with all the best stuff, we know that we're simplifying in the long run. We don't have to work through, these are proven products, proven, you know, companies, and I guess that's really almost life. If you can and you can afford it and you can buy the best, you're probably going to have less problems sometimes.
sometimes, like, you get little speed bumps along the way, but they're not, you can overcome them, and then you realize what they are after a while. Once you're doing something, you realize, okay, this operation is going to take a little longer, or let's get 2 of these, or let's figure out, let's keep some of this in stock in case something happens. And so you just learn all the little nuances that you need to have. And basically you have to have a fully equipped shop. Like you have an AutoZone in the back, because you need fuel line and gaskets and clamps. And, like we replaced everything. Like there was, unless it was something you couldn't get, then, and if you couldn't get it, we'd have to rebuild it or refurbish it and make it perfect again. So it was a lot of fun. We learned a lot of stuff and met some really nice people. So some really good people that we did cars for, and that we still talk to. I still talk to them now. And that Plymouth Fury that we did for Roger, he would drive that. He's not well now, but he would drive that up to my shop and come visit with it. Drove it all over the place. He drove it to Lake Havasu for the Run to the Sun. He just loved that car, 340 4-speed car. And I love that car too. It was a great car. It's a little bit of a different car, who does a Fury?
Well, what a great point. Like you said, the reveal, but then if you stay in contact with them, then that reveal presents itself multiple times over for somebody like you and the A-Team. And it's rewarding because you get to see that person, and it's that human perspective that we get to add to the story of, the rad car. And really, that's why I'm here. I mean, that's why you're here. It's like we're talking because we want the story behind the metal, and you get that with some of these, these builds.
Oh, exactly. And a lot of people stay in touch and get, and they get stuff done. And I've actually purchased back and just so that people are clear on it, because some people aren't clear on it. Sometimes the cars get sold, unfortunately.
I was wondering, is there a rule? Is there any kind of paperwork that says you can't sell it?
No, there's nothing, but it's life though. People have to, people hate on it and they get mad and they're like, oh, I'd never sell that car and you don't deserve it. But it's life at the end of the day. People's lives go through changes and they go through situations that they can't control, or they can control poorly or not, or however you want to look at it. And sometimes these things come up for sale. And so I bought back the Bandit car,
which was what was going to be the last car, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Now it's not.
It's not. Yeah. It's not anymore.
You're like, damn it.
Yeah. No, it's okay because it's a Bandit.
Yeah, it's still a Bandit.
So and then I bought back the very first car we did when we came back for the first season was the '65 Impala, and both those situations were not good for the people, and I like to think that we helped them again, and that's how I look at it. They were helped, and we did what we could the first time, and then ultimately at the end of the day, we helped them again. And unfortunately, they don't have it. A lot of people don't see it that way, but that's how I look at it, because by buying the cars back, we gave them the avenue to do something else they needed to do that was more important in their life. And so that's just how it goes. That's just life. You can't hang on to everything forever, unfortunately, and neither situation were they greedy or really prospering. It was just a situation where they had to sell.
Yeah, I was definitely wondering how that works. And, I think it's kind of cool that you got the Bandit. Who wouldn't want the Bandit? What a rad car. The wheels, again, Foose doing what he does. Thinking that it was the last episode. The guy, I can only imagine, and it's probably confidential, and even out of respect of the guy that got it, I never thought with what he went through for that car and how that car had been such a big part of his life. But he even alluded to it. He's like, this car is a pain in my ass. And then next thing I know, he doesn't own the car anymore and you own the car.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot there. Here's something else that, this is where you get into the fun stuff that happens on a show like that, and people you meet. So Tom, obviously, that owned the car, you can see him jump for joy in the episode when he gets his car back. I actually hired him, and he worked at my shop. And he is probably the most talented TIG welder and roll cage / chassis builder. So this '69 Mustang that we're building for a guy out of Canada, and So I have one of the, there's multiple ones, but I have one of the original Boyd Coddington frame tables. And if you look at the pictures of Boyd Air and the build pictures, I put one up a couple days ago on Instagram. You look at that table, I have that table. So we mocked that car up on that table with 4 inches of ride height. And then I hired Tom, and he built all the complete chassis for that car. And the work is unbelievable. But the problem is that we don't build chassis every day, and we don't build roll cages every day. So when we got to the end of that project, then he had to go find a different job, and then he had some other stuff going on. So there's way more to it than just a guy that needed some money and sold his car.
There always is, right? I mean,
yeah. And Tom's a great guy, and we get along great, and it's just he's been dealt a series of unfortunate circumstances. And, he had to find a way to deal with them. And I believe he's doing better now. And if I ever have another chassis or roll cage to do that's that tedious, like you look at the welds on, like welding around the pipes and everything, it's unbelievable. Like there's some of the nicest TIG welds we've ever seen. And you could literally take like a front downpipe off the left and put it on the right. And like one day I'm looking at it, so which one goes where? He goes, doesn't matter, they're perfect.
So, he knows. He knows.
He knows, and he actually redid the exhaust on that car.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. That's how I found out. So Mike Cromer was good friends with him. Calls me up and said, hey, Tom wants to redo the exhaust on the Bandit. And I'm like, really? Why? He goes, I don't know. He wants to do this and do that and everything. So Magnaflow and Richard Waitist, like just, salt of the earth guy and helped us so much. And Magnaflow helped us. And so they shipped him a U-Build kit to his house, and about a week later, probably 2 weeks later, actually, I got a picture from my Cromer of the car on the lift and the exhaust. And I'm looking at it and I go, who did that? He goes, well, Tom did it. I said, well, you better have him call me. I said, because if he can do that, I got a job for him. And so there's a guy that was just a guy that had his car in a shop and couldn't get it done, but turns out he's like this wild fabricator for roll cages and chassis. Who would think that? It's just not in the cards, Well,
and then to come back full circle and end up working with and for you.
Yeah.
It's a small circle, like you said, the small world of automotive. You're going to cross paths with people some different times, and whether or not he put his car in or not, somebody put it in for him. Maybe he didn't even put it in. So it's, again, that probably plays into it. The C10 that you guys did, I mean, forget about it. That guy is as nice as it can be, and everything that, again, people put, friends and family in, and, what they do with the car from there, I guess, again, it's up to them.
Well, and, there's been some other different situations, but one that's really good is I've got a young guy, Carlos Nito works for me, and we've been friends for a long time. We actually he's 22 or 23, and he's just an excellent body and prep and paint guy. And we overhauled his dad's 442, was the silver 442. And he was just a kid then. He would have been 17 or 18 maybe when we did that. But the weird part about it was he lived 2 doors down from one of my customers. And so after he got done school and he started working in a body shop, one of my customer would come over and goes, hey, Carlos really wants to come work for you. And I'm like, really? I'm just like, and so ended up working, and he's just the best guy ever. And that 442 is like the day we did it. It's in the garage. It's covered. It's waxed. It's clean. The oil's changed on it. They just love it, and they take care of it, and they cherish that car. And so that car is in a perfect home.
They almost ought to do a show because, like you said, everybody's so close within, let's just say, 100 miles of SoCal. I wonder if they ever done that? I mean, to have like an overhauling show, like everybody comes, every year or every couple of years, and how cool would that be? I mean, you're talking some kick-ass, builds right there.
Some cool cars. I think they've tried it a couple times. There's been like maybe 4 or 5 cars, like cruising for Akira. There'll be 4 or 5 cars. I think it's just difficult to get everybody together.
Sure. Yeah.
Would be, and then trying to find everybody. I don't know who, people's everything changes, and I don't know how you'd find half these people now, but it could be done. It'd be cool.
Yeah, well, maybe someday they'll look at something like that. So for the audience, overhauling, they just announced it. I mean, within 2019 that it's back, and so they ended it. Mark was on it for the last 4 years, and I don't know how they make that determination based upon Chip's probably like, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I need to regroup, and then maybe they throw more money at him. Will you consider being on there, or are you like, I'm done, I've got to work on California Speed and Custom?
Yeah, I'm so entrenched in what I'm doing here that I don't want to go back. And to me, it's one of those things. There's a couple things there, and one thing is that it's internet only. It's not actually going to be on TV. It's Motor Trend's trying to boost their app, and so that's a little bit of and it's a half an hour show. So and they're doing 2006 and up. And I'm not being negative about any of it. It's just not the parameters that I would want to be in. It doesn't really appeal to me. And then I feel that you can't put the band back together.
Yeah. Talk about going full circle and going full collision body, right? 2006 and up. I mean, that goes right back to what we were talking about. And I did not know that. I didn't know that it was 06 and up. And that's, I almost wonder that, whatever, Chip's a smart man, but I'm surprised he would even do that, because they'll come up with a funny meme or new internet name for overhauling, the overhauling 3.0 will be a little different.
That's the thing. And I was it kind of bothers me because it's just not what we did. And it's a different, I understand that times change and there's a different format in there. I guess my biggest problem is more with Motor Trend, with the fact that they're trying to boost app sales, and by releasing it only on the app. And the problem I have with that is a lot of customers, a lot of our fans, and a lot of people that watch the show and reach out to us, they're already paying for it on cable. And so that's my big problem, is that they're already paying for it on a cable package. Now you're saying to them, hey, if you want to watch this and you really like these guys, then you got to buy the app.
Well, I agree, but I'm cable-less for probably 5 years, and I think that the trend is definitely that way. For me, I'll help Motor Trend. I pay the $5. The little statement comes every month, and I'll tell you right now, it's easily the best $5 that I spend. I mean, I'd probably like the NFL package because I do like football, but then I find that I just listen to the games on the radio every now and then, and I'm usually in the shop or in the garage, so I don't watch that much football. But for $5, at least for me, it's definitely my son and I's little go-to, because he's a little gearhead, and so we can sit down and we can watch from roadkill to overhauling to engine masters and stuff like that. So the $5 for the audience, it's worth it. It is a nice app, but again, it's not going to be the same if they're doing, at least from an overhauling perspective.
Right. And I think, you're in a unique situation. You're in a situation that a lot of people are in now, where you're just going to pick your apps and that's what you're going to buy. My issue is with people that are already paying for it in cable.
Yeah.
And they're being told they have to buy the app. So you're not paying for it in cable and you're paying for the app and you're happy with that. That's a great situation. That's, I think, where they ultimately want to be down the road. And that's where technology is going to take us down the road, where we're all going to sit there and go, I want to watch Showtime and HBO and NFL and Motor Trend. And that's what you're going to have. And you're not going to have all this other stuff. But in the meantime, I kind of look at it as double dipping. It's on my own opinion.
Well, they're going to have to do that, because right now, again, we'll go another side cart issue is cable is just it's dying fast. It's on life support, I assume, because I don't need to watch Lifetime and I don't need to watch whatever CNN and Fox News and everything else. It's like, these are the 4 things I want to watch. So individualize. That's how, hell, anymore everybody just stills it anyways. They get little black boxes and Fire Sticks and Cody's and all this stuff, and they're like, all right, we're watching Spider-Man just came out last week, let's watch the movie. All right.
No, it's definitely the future. It's just, I feel bad for somebody if they have to pay twice. That's all.
Yeah, no, you're right. So let's jump to, boy, man, this is an OBS talk episode. I swear we've got OBS trucks in there, you guys. So bear with me. But one of the coolest things when I'm looking at this was, you're such a great guest for this, which again, I'm going to consider the first OBS talk episode but you're also a C10 guy. So it's cool with your Patina 10, which, by the way, I don't remember where I saw it. It was either at Pomona, maybe Del Mar. Had you had that truck out here to Scottsdale for Good Guys at all?
No, it's never been to any of those shows. It only went to SEMA once.
Well, then I saw it at SEMA. Then that's where, what booth was it in?
It wasn't. It was outside in the gold lot.
So that would be around the corner in the back, kind of by the, would that be by the racetrack kind of area?
No, it was across the street. Like
where they tore it all down now, where it's that open lot.
Yes, where they did SEMA Ignited.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
Over there, and we had a hiccup with where we were supposed to be, and Mike Spagnolia actually saved the day and got me into the gold lot, and so it was just in the gold lot, and it was great that it was in the gold lot on Friday for Ignited, because everybody else was going over there and it was already over there. But yeah, it was just there, and it's a cool piece. It's
beyond. Yeah, it's a perfect piece. Yeah, how funny is that though to think now that Mark can't even get into SEMA. I mean, what's the irony of that? I mean, you got guys that are just doing everything they can to get into SEMA, and it's like, Mark, we're kicking you out this year. You're not going to be in. You're like, are you shitting me?
Yeah, well, luckily it wasn't SEMA's fault, but it was. I don't want to say who it was. But
okay. Yeah. Yeah. Take the high road. Take the high road. Obviously, yeah. SEMA's one of those things again where some years it seems like they're letting in 64,000 cars, and then they'll change their mind at the last minute and they kick cars out, and it's a tough deal. But the Patina 10 is nothing but beautiful, and I do think what you've done with that truck. It's nothing short of brilliant, and less is more. That's all day long. Less is more.
Well, and the great thing about that truck was I bought it from the original owner, and he drove it to work every day, and it's a radio delete truck. And,
love it.
And I thought about that, and I thought, this guy drove this to work every day, no radio. So there's no radio in it now. It's still a radio delete truck, and I don't intend to ever put anything in it. But everything was so nice on it. That truck has the original gas tank, has the original brake lines, all the original gas lines, and they're perfect. They're absolutely flawless. They're beautiful. And the frame is perfect on it. And so we just got really, really lucky with getting the right truck. And that wasn't intentional either. That truck, my friend Joe was down here from Canada, and we went to Derelict Donuts in Huntington Beach on the Saturday morning. And we walked around and looked at all the cars. And when we were leaving, that truck had pulled up out front of the donut shop and had a for sale sign in the back of it. And it was that green with the white, and it was up high, and it had aftermarket spoked wheels on it, just like a wagon wheel chromed, and those little steps. And I remember walking by it and I thought, man, that color is bad at first. And then I just took a picture of the for sale sign, and that was it. And probably 3 days later, Joe says, hey, we're going to go look at that truck. And I said, yeah, we should go look at that. So we called the guy, and we went over there, and just when we started looking at it and I drove it around the block, it was absolutely flawless truck, never been monkeyed with. Nobody had ever hacked on it. Nobody had ever had oil changes and everything. It was just beautiful. It was perfect. It was amazing. And
were you looking for a square? Were you looking for a truck? No. It found you.
It just found me, and then I started looking at that color, and I thought, I actually like that color, because you're not going to be able to duplicate the patina that's on it, because it's real. The truck's never been painted, and there's some keyboard warriors that have challenged me on that, and I welcome them to drive here with something of substantial value and a title with them, and then we can go over it, because we can paint you to that truck anywhere.
Don't waste your time, because they're keyboard warriors. Yeah, that truck hasn't been painted. For the audience, it's I don't know what color they call it in the square. It's a medium olive in the 6772, but it's a little darker for the square. What color green do they call it?
I believe it's just olive.
Olive, okay, yeah. I know I feel like it's a tad, darker in the square versus but again, it's probably not. For a 6772, they call it like medium olive, or it's like MED olive. The cool thing is, like you said, if you can find a truck that's unmolested, effed with, I used to just call it JC Whitney, every little thing that they could do from electrical perspective alone. It's like when you get in my son's truck, it's such a fun truck, but at the same time, it's been through great grandpa, mom and dad learned how to drive on it. Now he's into it, and I'm like, we're ripping every wire out of this thing, because who knows what they did along the generations. And when you get a 1, a 2, maybe a 3 owner, and you can look at that, and that's what you did. And then what you did with it, that's really the true story.
Well, I wanted to stay, we during overhauling, I was driving it. I was driving it every day. We did a mild drop on it, and Not a full slam, just did shackles, hangers on the back, spindles and springs in the front. I was driving, put wheels and tires on it. I was driving it, and then TCI wanted to, they were down for a project on overhauling, and they're looking at it saying, I said, well, you're not going to find one that's this nice. There's not even any shims in that truck on the front fenders and everything. There's no shims.
Wow.
And which is very odd for one of those trucks. And so they took it and developed their front suspension, and they got the front suspension done. And then they sent me a 4-link for the back. That was the 53 to whatever, 57. And so I called them back and I said, no, we got to make a bolt-in 4-link on the back. I said, because no one's going to be able to jig this thing up in their driveway at home somewhere and wherever in the U.S. and put this in. So you need to come up with a bolt-in situation for it. And so they did, and they made those pockets that encapsulate the rear axle and did all that. And they got it back to us. And we got it back 18 days before SEMA. And basically all that was done was the suspension was in it. But it all had to come back out and everything be painted. So we pulled the whole truck apart. We pulled the motor and trans, pulled all the suspension out, took the box off and everything. We left the cab on it, and we redid the frame, painted everything, and went through the motor and trans. And then I got the bright idea to put that blower on it and paint the blower. And it's got Holley's fuel injection on it, the Terminator Stealth, so it looks like a carburetor.
Yeah, that's what I have on Yellowstone has that. It definitely does look like a carburetor.
Oh yeah, people think it's a carb, and so I had this vision in my mind by painting the blower, and I told Bill at Holley that I said, I'm going to paint that blower, and he's like, really? People were, they were skeptical at first, but I tried to make it look like, everybody says they tried to make it look like it came that way, but I know it didn't come that way, obviously, but I just wanted to do something different. Everybody's turboing everything. Everybody's airbagging it and putting LSs. Nothing against any of that. So I just went 180 the other way.
Yeah. It's almost like if it came that way, or if it would have came that way, this is how it would have looked in theory. Right. If some guy in the, 70s would have said, hey, I can put this blower on this truck, yeah. So that's another great way of looking at it. You know what I mean?
Well, and you look under the hood and people laugh because it's got the jack, like the original jack, and the original jack handle and the instructions. All that's original on that truck. The data, the sticker that's on the left-hand side wheel well with all the trim options and paint codes in there, that's the original sticker.
Yeah, the SPID. On those, so for the audience on those, so 67 to 72, every day, all day is going to be in your glove box. For whatever reason, I don't know why they did this, but on some of those 73s, I don't know about 74s, they'll have it on the inner left fender well, which is kind of asinine because you think about the moisture and all the stuff that's going on under the, under that hood. That's how Yellowstone was too. I was able to take it off of that fender well and salvage it, but service parts ID indication is SPID, but now they were back in the glove box for the most part. So sometimes you'll see them on that front driver fender. Yeah,
and I've had people argue with me about that. They're like, no, that's not where it goes. That's exactly where it was.
Yeah, I think I don't know if it's only a 73 year. Somebody like Joe Yezzi would know that. Somebody like Square Body Specialist, some of those guys that are really into that gen. I thought the same thing. I'm like, what the hell is that doing? When I bought Yellowstone, which was my first Square, I was like, why is that there? That makes no sense. But sure enough, and I just picked up a 74 Blazer, and it's in the glove box. So, you just never know. But those are the two spots that you look at. And, like you said, some of these weekend warriors or keyboard warriors might challenge you on that, but it doesn't matter because it's one rad ass little truck. And then you had Steve do his magic on the side.
And I just let Steve. So with Steve, I don't, Steve and I are on the same wavelength and on the same page with everything. I can't think of anything that we've never disagreed on anything. We've kind of improved and modified different things. But like, for example, on that truck. So if you look at that truck, Steve also does all my shirts. So, and I just tell him, you just do what you think is right. You know what I like, and you know what I think is cool and everything. And so he came over and I said, okay, just do it, make it look cool. And so he was doing the lettering on the doors, and he had it all taped off and everything. And then I came back and he had put the orange on there. And at first I was like, whoa, where'd that come from? And he was kind of waiting to see what I was going to say. I said, "That's freaking awesome." He goes, "Well, it was." He goes, "When I laid it out, it was the orange tape." And I thought, "Geez, that color looks good on there." So he did the lettering in orange, and that's just how his mind works.
Yeah. He's an amazing man. I love to listen to him. His stories, he definitely has a youthism. He sounds, when he's talking, because of his joy and jubilance, he sounds like an 18-year-old, probably like me. I get a little passionate. And for the audience, because we don't have time to get into the amount of accolades and recognition and awards that Steve Stanford probably has behind his name, and maybe someday we can have him on OBS Talk. But just look up Steve Stanford, a business partner with Mark, and you guys do the art that you can drive on YouTube, one of your new series. So let's jump into that, and then we'll get into OBS craziness.
Well, Art You Can Drive was a fun. So my friend Josh at Unstoppable Entertainment, he was a producer on Overhauling, and he's a full service shop. He can do anything. And so we started thinking about what we could do and how we could work with Steve. And, Steve's obviously very, very well known in the art standpoint. But what a lot of people don't know about him is how well spoken he is and what a treasure trove of information that he is. Because that guy's got a memory. It's unbelievable. He remembers. I can't even comprehend what he can remember. So when you want to start talking about a car, it's unbelievable because he remembers who designed it and why they did it, and what was happening at Ford or GM when that was going on, and it blows your mind. So we were sitting there one day, and I said, you know what, we should do a little show about these cars, these hot rods and muscle cars and everything, that's more indicative of what it's actually like to own them, because people's perception of owning these cars and the reality of owning these cars, as you well know, are two different things. And so we started with that red 63 Corvette. So if you want to take a red 63 Corvette convertible, 327 4-speed car, manual steering, no air conditioning, and drive that down PCH on a Sunday afternoon, you're going to look bitchin'. There's no doubt about it. But it's going to wear you out. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of the premise of the show, was that, and some people got it, some people didn't get it. But all those shows, we did 10 episodes, those are all one take.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're one take. And I don't tell Steve what the car is up front. So, because I don't want to give him any time to think about it. Because he's good, because he's that good. I don't need to give him any time. And so my role is the mechanical portion of it and what it's like to actually own and drive it. And then Steve goes into the visual and the art side of it where, and so we kind of put the two together, and it's 3.5 minutes long. And it's just our take on what it's like to have a car like that and drive it and own it. And so it was a fun little thing to do for both of us. And it's a little odd, but it was fun. And we had a great time doing it. We're talking about doing season 2 right now, and we shot the first episode already. And so it's like anything. It's like overhauling. Now we got to find 10 more cars, and do something different. But
do you ever think about doing the cars that are in California Speed and Custom, or are they just your cars?
Actually, a lot of those cars, we did some of my own cars in the first season, and then some of our customers' cars, which made it kind of easy.
Yeah,
it easier. But but we were kind of like looking now to maybe expand it and do I really want to do a Nissan Skyline because I think those things are so cool, and I'd like to do a Typhoon.
Cyclone or a Typhoon. Oh my God, yeah. I'm surprised you don't have one of those yet.
Actually, I know where there's 2 of each.
But are they for sale?
Not as of yet, but
yeah, they're coming back. Speaking of coming back, I mean, what a segue. Let's just hit it. I mean, you want to talk about a Typhoon or a Cyclone? That's the time. That's the era, and it's coming back, and it's like a tidal wave. I wonder as I reach out to Mark, and I'm sitting here and I'm doing OBS Talk, and I'm putting stuff out on social media, and it's coming back really positively. I don't know that I'm too soon on this. I don't feel like I am. I feel like I'm right where we need to be from OBS perspective. I think the trucks are picking up. I don't know if because of social media, it's going to get crazy fast, or I hope it doesn't. I don't think that it will. I think it will actually get too crazy too fast because every guy is going to try to go out and buy every OBS truck or whatever. And then I think that will kind of ruin it or put a bad taste in somebody's mouth. I just hope that it just would slow play, you know, and maybe somebody listening could say, well, it can't slow play when you start OBS Talk and all these guys and Hot Rods by Boyd's is having, you know, they're bringing back, you know, ninjas and they're in 20s and it's all coming back, and watch out, because once it comes back, it's coming back. So that's where, you know, OBS Talk #1, we've got Mark on, and I can't wait to just hear him roar. C10 Nation, let me tell you about my buddies Travis, his dad Jack, aka Dad, and Nick. They run Pro Performance, AZ Pro Performance. They're active in our community. They're C10 guys. They're always working on new stuff, like their new suspension line, React Suspension. They're master dealers for AccuAir, Dakota Digital, Bear, Boyd Welding, Vintage Air, and many more. They're C10 specialists and stock many fast-moving products backed by their stellar customer service. Not only do they sell C10 parts, but they live and breathe C10s and are very active in our community. Like I said, look for them at your next truck show. Nick might be there if they let him out, but usually Travis and his dad, Jack, and they want to talk to you and help you out with your C10 project. Follow them on Instagram, Facebook, and you can also check out their Facebook group called C10 Addiction. So check them out and let them know that I sent you. You know, I've been buying my truck parts from Brothers for over 20 years now. BrothersTrucks.com. Anything you need from 47 to 87 Chevy and GMC restoration parts. The cool thing about Brothers, they've updated their website, super user-friendly, but they're more than just truck parts. They also offer a killer monthly newsletter, which really honestly goes into all kinds of things within the scene, a little bit in-depth. Sometimes I contribute, and so do many others. Talks about new videos that they have out, new tech, new parts that are on the horizon, and other current events in the scene. So get online, BrothersTrucks.com, get yourself the latest catalog, and sign up for the monthly newsletter. It includes restoration tips, videos, hot forum topics, event info, and so much more. So if you want to stay as current as possible, sign up for the catalog and get your Brothers monthly newsletter. It's that easy. BrothersTrucks.com, BrothersTrucks.com.
I hope the same thing you hope, is that it rolls out slowly and it's a little more controlled. Basically, the price of a square has gone up, and that's a great thing for our business and our industry, and I love it. So the next affordable thing is the CK, but what people don't realize is that how good the CK trucks were. And, I call them CK because when I worked at GM, that's what they were. They were C and they were Ks.
Yeah.
C's, two-wheel drive, and Ks, so old body style. But I think that for some of us true enthusiasts, they've never gone away, and we like to put that on Instagram, that they never went away, hashtag, because we've owned these things for a long time. But I think the big thing that people realize with these trucks is the drivability of them. You can get in, one that's got 200,000 miles on it and drive it across the country, and you're not going to worry about it breaking down. Like, they were extremely reliable and comfortable.
Exactly.
And they just look so good. Like, it's when you we all love the look of a square and it's cool, but like the old body style is like, we shouldn't even call it that, because it's not, to me, it's not even old. Like to me, it still looks good. Like, I daily drive a 95 step side lowered, and we call it Snowball because it's white, and all my trucks are white. That's why we have the White Trucks Matter sticker. That's
why you don't you have the Step Brothers? You have the Shorty, and then you have the other dually.
The crew dually.
Yeah.
Then I'm warped enough that I went to Pomona during overhauling because we needed to buy a shop truck, and I bought a '88 short bed 2-wheel drive with air, and that was the overhauling shop truck that ran errands. It's been all over Southern California, and it's my truck. And so I still have that truck, and I've got a 98 extended cab 3-door, and that's a nice cruiser. And then another, what's the other one? Got a 90 short 2-wheel drive regular cab. So I love them. I just think that you can jump in them and go, and they're reliable, and they look good, and they really look good lowered. And it's I don't know. To me, it's just it's a natural progression to go from the squares up to that.
It's cool too because, like you said, they never weren't cool. They really weren't. And I think what's going to be just crazy is that companies like, Beltec, Hot Rods by Boyd, these guys should be digging through their old templates, old tooling, and it's going to come back. And to think that that's where it started, that you talk about full circle, that's where, we all kind of agree that sport truck and sport trucking came from that era. And it is very ironic that it's called old body style, to kind of dive into the forums and how that all came about. There's worse names. Something like new body style is pretty shitty. So if it's old body style and it has to be that, the one thing that I kind of was saying, well, you've got old body style and then you've got old Boyd style. So you've got a little bit of both, and I do think that that's what's going to come back. I think you're going to see a morphing of the two. You'll see maybe not quite the crazy colors and the crazy combinations. I do think you'll see people that will do some radical stuff like that, just especially if they're building a SEMA truck or something, along the lines, bringing it all back with that color combos and the bright colors and the pinks and the purples and the lime greens and just the radical stuff. And then the big wheels. I mean, so you that the spin's going to be there, and truck guys and car guys are going to do what they do, and they're going to always have such great memories of those trucks.
Well, I think the difference too with these trucks is that, like you said, they were done when they were new. They were done when they were brand new. Like they went to Boyd's from the GMC Truck Center and they put a roll pan on it and painted the mirrors and painted the front bumper, and they dropped them and they put wheels and tires on it, and they took it back, put it on the lot. You could walk on the lot and pick your color and buy your truck. So it's not like a square where somebody took it home and put wheels on it, and maybe they lowered it, or not really back then, and they did some stuff to it. This entered into a whole different era where these trucks were customized and you could purchase them new off the lot. And that's mind blowing when you think about it. If you think about it today, what's the max you're going to get off the lot? A lift kit on a 4x4 or a 2-wheel drive faker and some wheels and tires on it. They were going, like Dwayne, you talked to Dwayne, they had those trucks stacked up at Boyd's, and then Pete Santini and Steve Stanford. Steve drew so many of those trucks for the Truck Center and for DeLillo Chevrolet in Huntington Beach. And so to me, it's a little bit of a different scenario because you're going back to something that was customized when it was brand new on the lot. And somehow that got recognized right away, and all of a sudden all these trucks and I think it was Boyd and California Street Rods and
Steve that made him look as cool and radical. Really radical is like the perfect thing when you think about some of those drawings.
Oh, they're crazy. And you think about what I really love and what I want to bring back and what we're working on right now, because we're working on a couple things that are not public and they're not going to be until, I don't know, maybe some show in November, but I'm not sure.
Okay, we got a few more months. All right. He's gonna drop something on us.
Yeah. So we're probably, but is the paint you're sitting in Canada waiting for the latest issue of Sport Truck to come and trucking at the time. And, every single one of those trucks on the cover had some wild paint job on it. They were all over the place. And that was so cool because it took ingenuity and it took talent, and it wasn't just putting a chassis and a motor in and everything. Like these trucks were, they were, even the first ones that had the computer cut masks to do the stuff. When you think back about that, like these were brand new trucks, and none of that's happening now. So I feel that all needs to come back. And, maybe if people don't want to get totally crazy into the paint's one thing, but I think the paint's what made them what they were, because they were just, that's never been done since.
Yeah, I think the styling of them, whether that includes paint, and you think about GM doing like the door handles, they're smooth door handles, and you think about some of the different things that GM. I've got some. I'll be dropping them on the C10 OBS Nation here, but working with the GM Heritage Center, I've got some stuff from them. And you look back at like 83 and they already had like the OBS truck, or they had the 88, 98, because they're 3-4 years ahead of time, at least back then when they, were mocking up their trucks and the tooling. And to think that they had, in 84 to get ready. The other thing I think we need to really talk about is the anticipation of a new truck, because even though now the second gen Square gets, lumped into Square, it was a second gen and it was some modified stuff. But the new Blazer, like I said, that I just recently picked up, the guy at the DMV, because we have to Arizona, you have to do a inspection. He said something about he goes, "Oh, that looks like the Blazer from Stranger Things," And I said, "Well, The Stranger Things is an 81 to 87 slope nose, and the guy's just like, oh shit, what, I'm starting to, well, this is a true square. And, so they get lumped in together. But GM, I mean, talk about anticipation. As a young kid, when that 88 hit, that was it. I mean, it's one of those things where you kind of look at time stamping your life, especially because I was such a freak about Chevrolet trucks and I like Chevrolet cars and I like old cars, that obviously I grew up in somewhat of a hot rod era, the 80s. But when the 88 hit, it was a big deal. It was a big damn deal. And then to make it even better, because of guys like Steve and Boyd and Dwayne and these GM dealerships and roll pans and paint and styling, it's a unique storm that Ford I don't think really touched. They got the Lightning and some different things, but for whatever reason, and maybe you being somewhat of a Ford guy or you have some Ford lineage, you look back and you're like, no, the 88 to 98 Chevy trucks dominated the industry.
I agree totally. There was just nothing even close to it. Like somehow they nailed it with that truck. And when you really think about what it takes to make it look cool, if you just took a stock truck, you're looking at a lowering kit, wheels and tires, paint the front bumper, maybe swap out the grill, put a roll pan on it. Like really, you can stop at that if you like, and and just color match everything. And all of a sudden, in the course of 3 or 4 days or a week of work at a shop, even you've got a bitchin' truck. And what can you do that with? Nothing. There's nothing that's really that you couldn't do that with a new truck.
Yeah. And Beltec made it easy for everybody to, okay, you get this magazine and there it is. And you're just flipping through and you're like, okay, I'm going to buy. And I think there's a lot of mini truck there too. I think we kind of, when you talk about some of the radical paint, and that'd be a great question for Steve is where did that craziness come from in his mind? Was he at the ski slopes that weekend and saw some, hot, ski bunny come down the hill wearing hot pink and he just couldn't get her out of his, he's probably happily married. So no offense, Steve, but, it's like, where does that come from? And I think the mini trucking era and some of the things that those crazy young mini truck guys that were doing, Ford Rangers, S10s, the little B2000s, you go down the long lines, the Toyotas. My brother had a Datsun 77. It was the little hustler, and I really like those body lines of that truck. And when I see one at the show, I can't, snap it fast enough and send it over to my brother. I like the square S10s. I still dig them today. I think it's such a cool truck, but so I think, we'll break it all down eventually someday and it really won't matter because it's all good stuff.
I think so. It's just something, it's just such a good platform to start with. V8 rear wheel drive, lots of room in the cab. And, I'm 6'1", I can drive a regular cab with no, it's not a tedious deal. And, even with the upgrades that we've done on Patina 10, it's still, you get into the 88 to 98, it's a totally different truck. And I don't know, there's just maybe it's me personally, but there's a comfort level there. I get in that and I'm happy to drive that. I drive that. People make fun of me all the time for that because what are you doing driving that old truck? And it's like, no, I love that truck.
It's my happy place.
On it.
Yeah, for sure. I will say that my kids, it is funny because I've got an 88. My son is now driving it and I'll get it back from him. The doors are a little long and the girls struggle with the doors, and I'm sure that could be 30-year-old hinges as well. But the doors are a little long, which is good for when you think about the cab and the leg room. The braking is absolutely horrendous. My son's, the one he's driving right now, we actually just, he's like, Dad, this thing's making this noise. So 2 weekends ago, we were getting ready to go through and update it. It still had all the original braking. And so you've got the softest pedal. And the cool thing is you can get online. I'll probably do a little tech thing on it, but you can really upgrade some of that stuff with the NBS, master cylinder. That's probably one of the, if not the only thing when a guy looks at and the square dash. As a kid, I didn't like the square dash. And then I don't know if it's like, what do you call that? Munchausen's disease, that you go back to the misery. And now I think the square dash, it just represents the truck. So I think it's like, well, that's just the truck. And, I'm going to accept it. And I kind of almost like it versus, maybe the 95 where you've got a little more roundedness and, obviously an AC vent that you can turn towards you. The cup holder thing is kind of funny. I'm sure the guy whoever came up with the slide out at the time, I did think the cup holder thing was pretty cool, but now you kind of look at it and you're like, it's kind of weird. And they broke all the time.
Yeah, and the center console cup holders don't work either because they're too close together.
Yeah, yeah.
For the modern day cups.
Oh yeah, yeah. The 55, 64 ounces that we want to drink, and then you have got the add-on, so you can go and you get the center one that pops up and out, and you've got there's so many different options that you can do with these trucks. But again, it's going to come down to the front bumpers, the roll pans. I don't know if roll pans will come back. What do you think?
I think so. I think they're going to come back just because it cleans it up a lot, I think that's a key part of it. I think they need to have that personally. My Suburban, I did a Suburban when I went to Boyd's and I drove it out from Canada, and we actually tucked the rear bumper and we pulled the bumper in, took the pads off the top, welded that all up, took everything out of the center of it and welded all that and made it match the body at the back and painted it white to match. And that was pretty cool, but probably had 50, 60 hours in it, to get it to that point where I could paint it. And it was a nice alternative to, I didn't want to hack the back of the frame off of a Suburban to put a roll pan on it because the frame actually sticks out on the Tahoes and that you can't, you gotta do some cutting there. But nowadays wouldn't mean anything, but because the trucks are old. But
yeah, I think you could that's one thing I always kind of, I'm always watching, I'm waiting when I do watch overhauling. That's Chip's kind of in my mind, and I'm sure everybody, I'm not saying I'm, one guy on an island, that Chip always goes to the bumpers. I mean, that's his thing. He always goes and he's just going to take that stock bumper that's been pushed out by the factory, and he goes in and he does what he does, just like he did on that 67 C10, that little small window. He goes into that thing and he just goes to town on those. I could see where that might be something where, I don't know if an aftermarket company will come up with a way to modify and really tuck those bumpers. I do like a bumper versus a roll pan, at least for my taste now. But obviously, anytime you can suck it in, clean it up, get the pads off of it, make it look crisp and clean and no caffeine, then I think, a win. I will say, for whatever reason, the GMC just looks. I've got a GMC. I prefer the GMC, especially in the 88 to 94.
Right. Yeah.
Just so much cleaner.
Yeah, mine are all my Chevys are GMCs.
You've converted them over?
They're all GMC.
They've all had sex changes?
Everything's been corrupted into a GMC. I don't know. It's one of those I don't know how you say it. I just did it. Like, I didn't have to think about it. It was just, that's not going to be a Chevy. When I got my dually's actually a 2000. And so it's the tail end of the run.
Mm-hmm. The newest of the newest.
Yeah, they kept them for a long, and it screws people up because they think it's old. And I said, no, it's actually a 2000. So, and it's not that, but that's the first thing that went was all the Chevy stuff. See you later. And changed it over to a GMC, and I like the look of that. So that's my favorite.
It is funny. Like, I have a 067, so an 07 Classic, but I prefer the Chevy front end on that era. So I prefer the Chevy on the NBS, but on the the OBS, I prefer the GMC. I mean, I do like the Chevy on the end years. Obviously, when they really gave that upgrade, you've got the front end. Well, you did a great job. You did the what was it, like the 2000 or 2000, but the 19 or the 2020, and you said, well, I can fix this, and you did a post where you had it looked like it was like the last year of the OBS Chevy grill on an HD truck. And you look at that and you're like, yeah, that's bitching.
Yeah, I think that would work really well if we could make that happen.
I think there's already companies doing anything and everything to try to clean those up. Again, I will say the GMCs look better if you get the half ton, the 19. I think the 19 swoops down on the GMC and the Chevy swoops up. I actually feel bad for Chevy. I look at the GMC and I see them coming now, and I drive, and when I'm driving, I like the GMC a lot better. A lot better.
I'm right with you on that. I like the GMC. I think it's a better looking truck, and I don't know. Like, to me, like I'm just not digging the whole style of all these trucks. So like, I don't want my truck to look like a dump truck or a highway hauler. Like, they're so big in the front end now.
Yeah.
And, the height from the top of the hood to the bottom of the lower deflector on the bumper is, like, I don't even know what that is. It's crazy,
We've had, at the station where I work at the fire station, we've had it a couple times lined up where we have an OBS GMC, an NBS GMC, and then maybe like an N Chevy, and GMC, you know, and you line them all up, and it is crazy. And I'm sure it's all emissions. They're just trying to jam as much air into that front end. But when you look at how big a grill is on, you know, an 18 to going back to a 07, you know, whether you're going, you know, to a NBS and then you go all the way back to an OBS and then you go back all the way to a square, it's pretty crazy to look at that lineage and, you know, how far it's all come and where they're, you know, jamming air in and so on and so forth. But, we'll see. I think Mark and the team have got something figured out here. We're going to get 99 2000 front ends on 2020 trucks, and everybody will be happy.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a cool project to do that. We've actually got a customer right now that wants to do I'm trying to get them up. I want to get up to like an 18 and take an 18 and make it look like a square.
Oh, 100. I've talked about that so many times. I look at an 18, you know, obviously you got, you know, 15, 16s, but then 18 looks exactly, a guy at work has an 18 and I parked it next to my 76 one day and I just snapped photos. I mean, I must have way too many in my phone. And I was like, and the cool thing about it is a GMC, I think you could take, especially a guy with your talents and connections, but I think you could take an 18 GMC, pull the front end and put a 73, 74 grill inside there, or at least make it look like that. And then just, whether or not you two-toned it or not, and then you did some of the molding and some of the different things, but and some other companies have done that. I don't think, you know, they've done the grill and they've, you know, morphed the front end. Obviously they just do a two-tone paint, call it a Big 10 or something like that, and they're making it look, you know, modern, throwing a couple decals on it. But I think to actually, you know, put a 73, 74, which is by far my favorite square grill, if you could do that on a 18 GMC, you know, even a 17, I mean, either way, the thing that draws me in, and this is your life and passion, it's the fender wells, the inner wells really draws me in too. So not only the way that the hood is shaped, I think those fender wells really suck me in from a square perspective.
I think so, and it just lends itself to it when you look at it. And the cool thing right now, believe it or not, is you can still buy a brand new 18. They're out there. You know, they're still at the dealers.
Yeah, they're probably going hot because guys don't want the 19s.
Well, believe it or not, in GM's infinite wisdom, the last time I checked, it was cheaper to buy a 19. And they had better incentives on the 19 than the 18. But the 18s are out there, and I just saw a white one the other day at a dealer, and I thought, oh, that's tempting, you know, to start screwing around with that project. But we've got a customer right now that's hot on it, and they're on the lookout for a truck as of yesterday. So we'll see where that takes us. But
yeah, that'll be fun to watch and see what you guys do. The 07 Classic I have, that's the same thing. When I bought mine, I could have bought the 07 new. So the new, or well, an NBS, right? But I look at the 06, 07, what do they call them? Shark eyes or shark grill or shark, whatever. I look at that as just like I'm looking at a 71, 72 for whatever reason, the way the hood line is. And then I've seen, and you probably haven't, if you haven't, I'll shoot them over to you, but where guys have morphed the 67 to 72 into one of those 06 style trucks, and it does look a lot. You know, they've reskinned it and they've done some of the body lines. I think the fenders, I think they could have, I think they had to shorten the 67 to 72 fenders. They're not quite as long, maybe the way that the truck lines up. But and I've talked to GM about this. Some of the different guys, they know what they're doing. At least, well, they did before 2019. They do just reincarnate these things. I feel like they have these guys sitting there and they're like, well, this era is now 30 years. These guys are 45 years old. They grew up looking at their dad's square. Let's let them, you know, motivate them to buy an 18, a 16, 17, 18, just because they look a lot like the old trucks.
I think so. You know, so we'll see what we can do with that. I don't know what to do with the 19. I got no clue there, but it's kind of frustrating for me. I don't know what to make of that. But so in the meantime, I'm going to keep driving my 95.
What do you think about interior upgrades on that? So you 95, you got the new interior. Are you a new interior guy? Do you prefer the 95, on up versus the 88 to 94?
I don't know that I prefer it. I do like that the air conditioning works better and that system works better. And I think the seats are better. Like mine has the lumbar in the seat and that. So I think there's some benefits there with that stuff. And, they could use, some of those 88 and 89 90s, they're pretty bare inside, like that, the one that that I've got the overhauling shop truck. That thing's got the little small headliner in it. It doesn't even cover the whole roof. And it's got a seat with a rubber floor mat. Like it's pretty, it's bare bones inside some of those early trucks. So I think the sound deadening's better in the 95 style with that cab and with that dash and everything in it. So I think there's some benefits there. The power windows work really well. The switches are located properly, and the power mirrors work really well. So I think there's some benefits if you want to drive it. If you're actually going to use it as a daily driver or you're going to use it regularly, I think it's maybe a little nicer inside.
Yeah, I agree. Mine's an 88, and although it's a GMC, it's bare bones. I mean, it's got manual cranks, and I think it's a radio delete, so it didn't even have the radio. Obviously, you've got the center console radio where the EQ was in a lot of those trucks, but it's pretty bare bones. And for my son right now, it's perfect. But I would like to upgrade it. I definitely would wish it had the power windows and stuff. You know, the upgraded SLE or whatever it was at the time. One thing that before I let you go, I've got a couple more for you. One thing I was kind of wondering, and, you know, it's funny to think with kind of get your opinion on it, but Good Guys just let squares in. And now we're already the society, social media, the kids, whoever it is, we're already like potentially jumping to 88 to 98. I mean, what do you think that does? And from the perspective of a guy who is, you know, this is your business, this is your life, this is your passion.
I think they need to move with the market personally. Like I think they need to be a little bit more aggressive in there. And I don't think it'll be a negative. I don't see how there's a negative involved with this. So I don't really understand the not moving the years up, especially 88 to 98. Like, you know, and not that I want to double talk it, but I think it should stop at 98 at this point, you know, just because of the lineage of those trucks and that they were customized when they were new. So, you know, when you look at that heritage of them, I think that's a good arguing point for them that they should be allowed to be in there. And plus there's some of them that are so nice. To you know, to me, the whole industry needs to move with everything, because, you know, I don't have guys coming to the shop anymore wanting to paint a 32 Ford or a 33 Ford. I don't even have guys coming that want to paint 55 Chevys. Like, now it's all Mustangs and Camaros, and now we're starting to see people poke around with IROCs. And, you know, you're starting to, it's really moving quickly when you think about it. Look what Detroit Speed did with that blue IROC. And you know, like that stuff's coming, I think, a little bit quicker than people realize. And again, it's going to dead end because that's kind of the tail end of it. You know, where are you going to go after that? But I think they need to open it up, and something that's custom is custom, and something that's cool is cool. And I don't think we should have as many barriers in the show car realm that we have right now.
If you think about it, I mean, I love that third gen Camaro, kid of the 80s, you know. Can you imagine I mean, I think why it's going to move fast is people want to, you know, they want to score the best ones they can before it gets out of control. And there's podcasts like this talking about it. So it's already, you know, they're already getting on social media and Craigslist and whatever format that they do. But, you know, if you, even today, you know, there might have been a time in maybe 1998 to 2008, you weren't cool. But if you still had your 88 IROC and your, you know, 93 or 90, you know, 2 or 3, 4 Chevy truck in the garage, to this day, you'd be a bad mofo. I mean, yeah, there was a time where you're like, all right, dude, you might want to update your cars, but now it's come back full circle, and there's probably some pretty bitchin' jean jacket wearing dudes out there, hot tub time machine, where they might have that IROC in there. And even at LS Fest this year in Vegas, LS Fest West, there was quite a few third gens that were there, and man, they looked really good.
I think they look good, and I think I'd like to get one. Actually, we've been looking around a little bit, and you know, haven't been able to find one. And I think with car shows, like, you know, if they want people, not just Good Guys, just car shows in general, they like, people are going and they're taking their kids, and those kids, you know, may have grown up in those era vehicles, and, you know, like, they got to appeal to a broader mass of people, I think, because, you know, we're all getting older. So, but it doesn't seem to be moving with us. It seems to be moving a little bit slower.
So, all right, let me ask you this. If you could have one car, one truck, sell them all to get one, what would you buy? What would you get back? What would you take?
That's That's a good question. I would still take my 95 Chevy truck. I keep that. I don't have any interest in getting rid of that. And if I could get one back, I'd get my 65 Mustang back, even though it's off brand right now.
Yeah. What happened to it?
Well, this is a strange story there too. I sold it to, I actually traded it to my best friend for, I built a shop. When I was 17 years old, I built my first shop, and he did all the plumbing and drywall in it. And I traded him for that 65 Mustang, and then we painted it Boyd red. And it was in 1989. We bought a wrecked 89 5-liter, and we took the drivetrain out of that. It was a brand new car, and took the drivetrain out and put it in that Mustang. And then he drove it for a long time, and then he ended up selling it too. So, and now I'm married to his sister.
Oh, I see. That was part of it. That was how you Canadians do it. I see.
Well, there's way more to that story, but yeah. So I'd like to have that car back, and I'll never get that car back. I think it's long gone.
Yeah.
But I just love my truck, and I'm happy with that truck, and I do want to keep that. There's not really anything as a daily driver. I wouldn't replace it with anything.
And that's a step side, right? You're 95.
It is. It's a step side, and everybody makes fun of me for that. That it's it's a step side, and I like it. It's. I guess they weren't that popular back in the day, but
I think they did a good job. I think they made them look cool. I don't think a 67 to 72 for me personally. I'm not a big stepper, and then I think the square steppers are pretty radical. I think guys tub them out for whatever reason. I think they were just called the flare side and then the fleet side back with the OBSs, but I don't know. I think they held on for a while. It is funny that they're no longer around. It is almost kind of ironic that they even kept them for the 88 to 98, but they did. And I know plenty of guys that had them. I'm obviously a fleet side guy.
Yeah. I just left that like that because I got it. So that's a one owner original paint truck too. And so it's never been painted, and the guy took really good care of it. And so to me, it's like you don't see that many step sides. It's almost come back full circle where they just kind of evaporated and they're not around anymore. So I'm going to leave it like that.
Well, it really has. It's come back. I gotta let you go. Where can our audience get a hold of you, find you, and reach out from the perspective of knowing a little bit more about Mark?
The easiest way, CaliforniaSpeedandCustom.com. So you can go on our website, and it's pretty current. There's a lot of current stuff on there. Instagram's really good, obviously, because same thing, CaliforniaSpeedandCustom.com. And email's real easy, mark.californiaspeedandcustom@gmail. So everything's all California Speed and Custom. So we're not too hard to find, and happy to. We get a lot of people that reach out and want to talk, and it's great. There's a lot of good people out there that we come in contact with. So
you guys can watch him too on YouTube. So if you want to check out the art of what is it? The art of
You Can Drive.
You Can Drive. You can check that on YouTube. Him and Steve, and then that's definitely who you'll find out who Steve Stanford is. So you can check that out. And obviously we're onto something here, Mark. So I think it's fun, and I appreciate you coming on. The lineage that you have with these trucks is something that's going to carry on for a long time, and I look forward to seeing what you have in November for SEMA.
Yeah, well, we'll have some fun stuff coming, and thank you for your time, and I really appreciate it, and it's been a pleasure.
Okay, Mark, thank you so much for coming on, and again, OBS Takeover, OBS Talk, and we're going to keep cranking these out. Thanks, Mark.